Hey guys, what's up? Russ here with episode 8 of Let's Talk Comics. This week's guest, none only than John's Comics with Kids. What's going on, brother?
It's awesome to be here, man. I can't believe you already had 7 of these. You're flying through these.
I know, like I'm trying to stick to that once a week like schedule.
Yeah.
It's hard to coordinate sometimes, like we were saying earlier with time zones and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's a little bit hard to get it coordinated sometimes, but it's been going good, man. I'm loving it.
I think there's so much to be said for just being able to hang out because, I've heard Reggie say this is a very isolating hobby, very solitary hobby.
Yeah,
And anything
yeah,
that
it can be
connects,
for sure.
yeah. And anything that connects it and makes it more social, I think is fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, the community itself, like I collected comics since I was a little kid, but I had no idea like something like this existed until like Matt the boy had 7 just kind of brought me into the community, and I found so many other collectors. Like I always
Sure.
thought it was this very like isolated thing, like only a few people. Because back in the day, man, if you told somebody you collected comics, you was getting smacked.
Yeah. You don't say that. You don't talk about that.
And now, man, all the cool people collect.
I saw that Dazzler right behind you. I was like, yeah, there it
Oh
is.
yeah, yeah.
Magic Lasso in the chat. He's like, sweet.
I got that thing just in time, man.
Yeah. If Taylor Swift comes around, you're going to be sitting pretty on that bad boy.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'll ever sell it though, man, because it took me so long to put this Dark Phoenix saga together.
Sure.
If I ever like stumble across a backup copy somewhere that's cheap enough, I might grab one.
Smart.
Lasso.
Disco Dazzler. I love it.
But yeah, I always like to start with the question of what got you into collecting.
I think everybody has the bug to hold on to things that mean something to them. And I think I struggled to remember like what I collected first. Like
Yeah.
what it was. I know that I had the baseball cards at some point, but I never was into the sports as much as my brothers were. And I know that I had back in the day, VHS tapes were a thing. I had a ton of video tapes.
Yeah.
That was my thing. And I loved widescreen videotapes. So I would get the movie I loved. I'd find a widescreen videotape and I'd buy those. So I had a ton of those before I transitioned to the discs, So, love you too, Adam. But the comics thing, I wasn't really collecting at first. I think I was just a kid reading books, and I just threw them in a box, cardboard box somewhere. Didn't have a short box or a long box, so I didn't take care of them. I rarely had bags and boards. I would cut cardboard to make a board for a bag.
Yeah.
Like it was that sloppy. So like I can't remember what like kicked the comic collecting off. I think ultimately it was like probably like that FOMO of seeing wall books, and being like, I want to have that. And clearly it's worth something because it's like kept up high out of my hand reach, It's like it's the denied pleasure of it. And it was a lot of, I remember the books that I remember as wall books were almost exclusively like Frank Miller Daredevil books, right? Like the ones when like Punisher's shooting him in the gut, or the one when he's pointing the gun like Dirty Harry style. Those like Punisher versus Daredevil books were always on the wall. The Elektra ones. So I certainly wanted a bunch of like Frank Miller books, like Year One, Dark Knight Returns, that kind of stuff.
They're just awesome storylines.
Yeah. And Miller was huge in the like mid or late 80s when I was really getting into it. And his stuff was everywhere.
Yeah, I was at Books a Million. It's a local store here. It's kind of like a Barnes and Noble type store.
Okay.
And they have a bunch of collected like trade paperbacks for comics.
Sure.
And every time I go in there, I see the Daredevil Born Again storyline just sitting on the shelf, the trade, and I keep coming so close to buying that every time because I haven't read it in years.
It
And it's
holds up.
such
I
I
know.
remember it being such a good story.
Yeah. And what I really love about it is the art, because it's not Miller. I think Miller's art can be really inconsistent, and
Yeah.
I was very grateful when Year One and Born Again were done by David Mazzucchelli, who is just a king, like just super talented.
Oh yeah. That's like you were saying, like growing up, like as far as collecting goes, it's like I don't think most kids like actually realize the collectability of stuff. Like I know I didn't as a kid. I was just
No,
like these books I have on the wall up here is that Reign of Superman storyline, and these are like the same ones I had when I was a kid, and
sure.
they're all in horrible shape because I've read them dozens and dozens of times.
Right?
But I
It,
still got them on the wall because I got such like fond memories of that storyline in
right.
particular.
For me, it was I my brothers were into it a little bit. I was Uncanny X-Men, and my older brother was X Factor when it first launched, like, the original Louis Simonson
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So he would get that, I would get X-Men, and then we would trade it. We would just swap the issues around so we could both read everything. And so we had all of those books, and they were just beat to heck, man, just read over and over again.
Yeah, I remember the Jim Lee run of X-Men,
Oh,
where that
sure.
started with that gatefold cover.
Oh, yeah.
And though I started reading X-Men during like the Onslaught storyline, I think. So it was mid '90s, I believe.
Onslaught.
And
Yeah, I think it was maybe early 90s, somewhere in there.
yeah, then I went back because we didn't have a comic book store. We had like a flea market I would go to a lot, and they just
Yeah,
had boxes of boxes of dollar bins. So that's where I found like a lot of the early Jim Lee X-Men books from the '90s and stuff like
yeah,
that.
for sure. And yeah,
But
I
those
agree,
those were
Adam.
awesome.
Miller's artwork has steadily declined.
Really?
Oh yeah, because he's done, obviously Sin City was his baby, and I think it had a certain style that was kind of cool to it. But over time, Dark Knight Strikes Again, Dark Knight was the last one, Master Race. Like, it just, his stuff has really fallen off.
I never did read those newer ones, the Master Race and stuff.
They're all right. They're I don't dislike them as much as other people do. I think it's an interesting trilogy, but I don't consider them all Batman books. I strongly think if people read the second one, which I think is called Strikes Again, as a Justice League book, I think it's way better. I think it's
Really?
way more entertaining if you go in knowing that Atom and the Flash and Green Lantern and Superman and Wonder Woman are all going to be a part of this. It's not the Batman story, Like Dark Knight was very Batman focused, but not Strikes Again.
Hmm.
This is true. This is true.
Now I've been so like out of the loop on newer stuff. I didn't even know Frank Miller was still doing stuff.
I think he's in that rarefied group like Art Adams is, and there's a
Yeah.
few others who were big names back when we were collecting, who've now just become cover artists because they can get a ton of money to do a cover of a certain style or an homage to another cover they did long ago that's super popular. And so Art Adams, he's been doing these ratio variants for X-Men and probably getting paid beautifully. And I'm an idiot. I'm buying them. It's great stuff.
Yeah. Have you like always leaned more toward Marvel as far as the superhero side goes?
I think so. I think I certainly liked Batman. I think he's pretty easy to get into. Um, I but I think I just appreciate, there's something about the Marvel universe that the problems the characters deal with are very relatable. I can't pay rent, like legitimately heroes who
Yeah.
can't pay rent. Like, it's interesting, that kind of stuff, versus the DC heroes often have bigger, issues, the problems that they're dealing with, battling, these epic powers, not that Marvel doesn't do that from time to time, but I think that their wheelhouse tends to be characters with like normal, everyday human, like relatable problems.
Yeah.
And you don't often see Superman and Batman having those issues.
Yeah, I think that's what attracted me to like Spider-Man comics and X-Men comics a
For
lot
sure.
in those early '90s when I started. Was
Absolutely.
storylines like that, especially Spider-Man.
Yeah, you look at Spider-Man trying to take care of his aunt and trying to hold down a job and trying to pay his rent and trying to also be a superhero because he knows it's his destiny and he can't avoid it, and trying to
Yeah.
keep his girlfriend happy. And it's like those were real issues. In fact, one of my favorite Spidey single issues is I think it's issue 15 of the like plain Spider-Man run, and it's a Eric Larson cover with him and Beast, and it's all focused on Mary Jane tells Peter she wants to have a baby, and
Oh,
Peter is like, I don't know what is wrong with my genetics, but I don't want to pass that on to a kid. Like, I don't know what this is going to do. And so he, you know, like a good scientist, he goes out and calls the scientists that he knows. Specifically, he gets a hold of Hank McCoy, and he's like, what if I have a mutant as a baby? And then
yeah.
Hank runs through the math of like the odds of you having a mutant based on what's happened to your genetics might be slightly higher than normal. These are the things. And it's interesting, but it's all about like, I don't want something to be wrong with my baby. Is like, it's a legit like concern for a parent,
Oh,
like
yeah.
how much more truer to life. And then of course the bad guy that they end up chasing all through the issue turns out to be a young baby who can't control his mutation and is just like, he looks like a
Mm.
giant monster rampaging, but when he calms down and stops his tantrum, he turns back into like a little baby again. And it's a very like beautiful way to kind of capitalize on human everyday stuff.
I don't think I've ever read that one. I'm gonna have to look that storyline up.
If you like Frank Miller, or sorry, Frank, God, I keep saying Frank Miller. If you like Eric Larson at all, and he's one of my favorite Spider-Man writers and artists, I think you'll really dig it. This was issue
Uh,
15, I believe. Which one of Spider-Man's friends was more amazing? You want me to talk about Dazzler some more? Or Firestar, probably. It definitely wasn't Iceman. I don't know why Iceman got hooked up into Spider-Man's universe. That never made sense
yeah.
to me.
If I remember right, wasn't Firestar created just for that animated series,
I
Spider-Man and
think,
His Amazing Friends?
yeah. And then it was like a
I
big
remember
deal when they
hearing
finally
something
put
about
her into
that.
the
Yeah.
comics.
Like I remember I didn't know who that character was until I read the Maximum Carnage storyline back in the day, and I remember her being a part of that
Sure.
because it was the first Spider-Man cartoon I remember watching was the one from the '90s. It wasn't until later where I went
Oh,
back and I
sure.
discovered the reruns of Amazing Friends and stuff.
Yeah. And there was and I don't remember where Amazing Friends ran, but I know that there was also like a series of shorts that I think ran through Three's Company or Electric Company. That's not Three's Company, sorry. Electric Company or one of those other like Saturday morning like science shows.
It probably
And
was.
they had like it wasn't every week, but every other week or every third week they'd have a Spider-Man short. And when you got one of those episodes, you were like so pumped. Like Electric Company ran a Spider-Man short. And I was like, oh, that's so cool.
That's awesome, man. I know the cartoons got me into like so many different comics. Like the X-Men animated series got me into the X-Men comics. The Spider-Man got me into the Spider-Man comics. The
Gateway drugs.
yeah, the movies did too because I remember the first Batman I ever remember seeing was the Michael Keaton '89 movie. I was
Of course.
9 years old when that came out, so it was like my first exposure to Batman in the movies. And then the animated series came out, and that was like I was hooked, man.
Yeah. And that show, I think of all of them, holds up so well.
Yeah,
It's timeless because the animation style, the music, the look of the city is very like throwback. And so I think it has this sort of timeless quality to it. My girls adore it and love it.
that's awesome, man. To see like the next generation get those like old school '90s. Because to me, like
Yes.
I'm still living in the '90s, man. The shows, the the movies, the music, the comics. I'm just the '90s was like my favorite era for almost everything because it's like that with whatever era you grow up in. I think.
That's exactly what I was going to say is I think it's where you click into that universe is where you're going to have the nostalgia feels for
Yeah,
it, right?
Yeah, it wasn't until a couple years ago where I started getting into books like older than the 90s, the 80s, 70s,
Sure.
Silver Age. And now I love those eras too, but it's just the 90s has the most like nostalgic love for me.
Yeah, because it's gonna mean something to you different because of the age you were when it made
Yeah,
that connection to you, got its hooks in you, you know.
yeah, absolutely. So, when specifically, because I know you're a big X-Men fan, when did that like did the show hit it like the cartoon get you first before the comics or
No, it was definitely comics first.
yeah,
When I was a kid, we would go every summer to see my grandparents in Arizona, and they had a little cabin up in the mountains there that definitely looks more like what you think of, not of Arizona, but maybe like the California redwood forest kind of mountain things. And they had a Circle K like right down, like walking distance from their cabin, and my mom would always give me money for the spinner racks to go. So like, every other day I'd be asking like, can I go? Can I go? Can I go? And she'd give me $1 or whatever, and I'd go down. Because I think that point the books were probably $2 or whatever.
yeah,
And I remember the covers for Uncanny X-Men in this time. This would have been mid 80s probably. Were just killer. They're just great. Like
oh
Wolverine
yeah,
versus Sabretooth and super bloody and as a boy, I was like, yes, this is gonna be violent, this is gonna be aggressive, this is gonna be wild. And I even found a fun, I think it was a reprint of Hulk 180 and 181 and 182 in one book.
oh,
And I
that's
loved
awesome.
it. And I was like, this is cool. I didn't care for the Hulk or the Sasquatch, but I was like, this Wolverine guy's pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
And then at the same time, I would buy off the spinner rack the Wolverine in the brown costume, as the member of the X-Men. So it was a fun, like, I could just get all the Wolverine, as much as Wolverine as I could possibly get.
oh yeah. I remember loving like that character specifically, like on the animated series and
Oh,
stuff,
for
and
sure.
then like getting his like solo series comics and stuff like that.
And now we're back to
But
Frank Miller, right? Frank Miller's
oh yeah,
solo miniseries, that Wolverine miniseries, which is so phenomenal. And he drew that one, and that is some of his best work.
like I remember like some of the covers that stood out was it was after he got his adamantium removed from that Fatal Attraction storyline. I remember one cover in particular, it was just like a close up of Wolverine with like
Oh,
his bone claws like half broken off on the cover or something.
yeah.
Such a cool cover. Seeing that as like a kid, that's awesome, man. I got to get that.
No, so good.
But it's like growing up around here, I didn't have a comic book store. It was a little gas station where I was getting my comics. And then I discovered like a local flea market that had like dollar boxes. And I want
Ooh.
to say it wasn't until I got back into collecting in around 2015 where I got to go in like my first comic book store. So I was like 2015, I believe I was 35 before I actually got to walk into a comic book store and not like have to like find comics at like random places.
My mom was nice enough that on occasion, if she was running errands in certain places in nearby cities, I knew where the shops were. And so if she was cool about it, I would save my money, and then she could drop me at that shop. She could run an errand and she'd come back and get me. Um, so that was the only times I could really spend my money and try to
Yeah.
find books that are like, oh, I'm going to fill in a story arc. Like for me, it was always like, whatever I got off the spinner rack, I would have huge gaps in stories. You know,
Oh yeah.
keeping up on stories was hard.
Yeah. I remember like because I started during the reign of Superman, so I missed the whole death of Superman. It
Sure.
took me, I remember it taking me a couple of years back in the early 90s to finally put that together from like
Yeah.
flea markets and stuff like that.
Oh, totally.
But yeah, I could like never, like the first time I read the whole story was in like trade paperback form.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, and the trades were so inconsistently published back then,
Yeah.
to get a full storyline was really tough.
Oh yeah. That's what I love now. You can get like trades of pretty much anything after 5, 6, 7 issues comes out, they usually make like a collected edition trade, and you can just, if you don't got the singles and you want to read
Yeah.
it, just pick that up.
Yeah, that's I think that's the new, model for them business wise, is they realize how much better the collected editions sell,
Yeah. And a lot of times you can get those on sale for like much cheaper than you would getting the individual issues.
Oh, completely. Yeah, for sure. In fact, I stopped buying Immortal Hulk single issues at the halfway point, and I saved enough money not buying the next 25 issues to basically afford the omnibus.
Oh yeah. That's something I've been like hesitant to get into. Like I want to get into some omnibuses, but I've been kind of hesitant because of like the price points and stuff. So I just been
Yeah,
like looking around and waiting on sales. Like the first one I want to pick up is the Death of Superman
of
omnibus.
course. Yeah.
That's like the first one like on my list. I'm just waiting on the right sale to hit like Midtown Comics or somewhere.
Well, and I love, if you like buying online, in stock trades usually has really good prices where you can sometimes get those things
Oh yeah.
60%
Oh
off
nice.
in some occasions. Never buy from Amazon, those kind of things, because you can
Oh I know.
always
Yeah.
get better deals
I've heard
elsewhere.
horror stories about Amazon
Yeah,
deliveries.
hard pass.
I've always tried to stick to like eBay and stuff if I can't find a store like a book
Yeah.
out in the wild.
My local shop will get better pricing, and it'll arrive sooner if I order Omnis through them. And that's
Oh,
what I
nice.
prefer to do for newer Omnis. So like that
Yeah.
Immortal Hulk and things. I'd rather my LCS makes the profit on it. And so if I let them know, like this summer there were 3 different Omnis, I knew the new Uncanny was going to drop, I knew the Immortal Hulk was going to drop, and I knew new X-Men was going to drop. And I was like, okay, that's 3 big Omnis for me this summer. Buy them for me. I'll pay whatever
Yeah.
it is, but they would give me a good price that was way better than Amazon, and the books would arrive faster and in great condition. Oftentimes it would be like a week before they start like shipping them on Amazon. I would already have it.
That's cool. That's the way to go if you got like a solid LCS.
Absolutely.
I know like the guy here that's local is pretty much a scav artist, so I don't deal with him much, like as little as possible.
That's rough. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't imagine how frustrating to a collector it must be to have a really crummy shop. I've been
Yeah.
so blessed by my LCS and the owner of that shop. And it's not like he's giving me like crazy, stupid deals. He just takes care of his customers, and he has to make his money. And I appreciate that. He buys a collection. He's not going to sell that mega grail key at 50% off or something like that. He's
Oh
going to,
yeah.
he's going to make his profit off of it. But he's going to give you a fair price. And if you buy a few books, he'll cut it down even more. And, he gives, if you have a pull list, he's giving you 30% off. He's,
Oh,
he's
that's
hooking you
nice.
up. He hooks you up.
I know
You just
like
got to
when I tried to
stay up
yeah,
on your books,
when I tried to do the pull list with this shop owner, every time a book would have spec on it, it wouldn't be in my box for
See,
some reason.
that's,
But then like a few days
yeah,
later, I would see it up on his wall for like
yeah, not cool.
triple, quadruple price. I'm like,
Not cool.
I like at the time, like, so I want to say I stopped collecting new books around 2021.
Okay.
I think it's been almost 2 years, but I was collecting the Thor run at the time,
Sure.
and I believe 2018, 2019 maybe. Yeah, I think it was the Donny Cates run,
Sure.
and I can't tell you like how many issues in that would have like some kind of like ridiculous spec, and I would end up having to wait on a second or third print to be able
So
to.
not cool, man.
Yeah,
Yeah. I've been very blessed. And I also will say it's the rare comic book shop that's super kid friendly, where they let your kids take things off the shelf and look at it,
oh
let
yeah,
kids sit on the floor and read. Because my LCS owner was always good to the kids. So my girls would go in, and he had a whole like wall of books for kids all ages, and they could grab anything they wanted and then just plop down on the ground and start reading. And he would even talk to them about it. Hey, what's that book? Do you like this one? And then when he found out, like Kate was into Greek mythology books, and there was this whole series of graphic novels, one for each of the gods, he was like making sure that anytime a new book in that run came out, he was like, Kate, there's a new one. Check that one out. You should tell me what you think of this one. He was very much trying to create an environment for future customers, for future
That's
kids,
awesome.
for future people to love this, because there's way too many shops who seem hell-bent on making sure there is no future customers
Oh,
for them. Don't
absolutely,
touch
man.
anything. Keep your kids out of here. Watch your kids at all times. This is not for kids. This is not kid stuff. And what are you doing but killing your client base, right?
Oh,
It's
absolutely. And like,
ridiculous.
I know, like one of the things that has me worried is like the digital future, like everything going like because
Yeah.
I heard somewhere just the other day that Best Buy is going to stop selling all like Blu-rays, DVDs, all
Yep.
they're just gonna. I hate that, man.
It's sad, and you don't know what is the future of physical media, because I think in the streaming landscape, I can understand that with the ease and proliferation of streaming, why printing discs doesn't make sense. You look at
Yeah,
companies like Netflix or Amazon, and they're like, I don't want to print discs for Stranger Things or Ted Lasso. Like, I don't want to burn discs. Like, that's a dead technology. If they want to watch Ted Lasso, they'll subscribe and they'll watch it over and over and over
yeah.
again whenever they want. Comics
What
are an
like?
interesting. They're
Oh, go
somewhere.
ahead.
They're on a different plane. I think the odds of comic books completely dying out are slim. I think the fan bases are there and the kids are going to be interested. The question is, where does the collectivity end?
Yeah,
Because currently the sales if we throw manga in, right, the sales of comic books has never been stronger. The collectivity is dropping, right? The holding on to specific keys and building up a collection, that has been dropping. And kids and younger readers and collectors, they just want to read the stories. If they read it digitally, or if they grab graphic novels or whatever, if they buy manga books that are not collectible, they just have the stories. They
yeah,
love it. The second it becomes a collectible, they're a little bit less interested. That's at least what I'm seeing.
yeah. I mean, I can see that in a lot of ways because if something like a book or series you love, and then like one issue in that run is collectible, do you read it? Do you not read it? Or do you like file it away somewhere to keep it
Right.
safe and like not get any damage to it?
Versus, like, I just love these characters, and this new Netflix show One Piece, based on the most popular manga of all time. And by that I mean it outsells Batman, outsells Spider-Man,
Really?
outsells Superman, it outsells everything. This is the most popular graphic series ever. It's called One Piece, and it's basically a humorous pirate adventure comic, right?
Hmm.
But it's a manga, right? And there's something insane, and JP would know, but there's something wild, like 300 volumes in this thing, and it's still being published. It's still coming out. It is absolutely popular, and they just dropped season 1 on Netflix, and it's great. It's my girls and I, we love it. It's very funny, very entertaining. It is selling hotcakes, man, this thing, but it's not collectible. It's just they want to read the story and find out what happens next. It's just an ongoing entertainment, like
Yeah.
streaming or anything. And when the new one drops, YouTube channels explode with people breaking it down, discussing all the things, getting into the artwork, getting it, because it's the same guy writing and drawing and doing all of it from the beginning. But that's the joy right there,
Yeah.
versus collecting it and keeping it and putting it in a plastic bag or any of that stuff. You'll see people like
It's
JP,
like
who's got a whole set of the One Piece on the wall behind him. He's got all the volumes up there.
I might have to check that out because the
If you
the
have,
only like anime manga I've ever really like been into was like Dragon Ball Z.
sure. So it centers around a group of miscreant pirates that are struggling to like become successful, and they all sort of bond together through their failures and become a very oddball crew of pirates. And they're looking for a ship at the beginning, and they're on the search for this thing called the One Piece, which is believed to make whoever finds it the leader of all the pirates. And it's a really fun Netflix show. If you want to get a sense of what it's about, you want to watch a couple episodes and then decide if the manga is for you. I believe the first few manga volumes are basically the first season of the show.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Like the it like reminds me of being a kid collecting, just the excitement of getting the book to read the story because you love the character.
Which at the core, shouldn't that be what our goal is? I mean, I know
Yeah.
that we want to make our collectibles go up in value, but are we doing this strictly as an investment, or do we want to have people still reading Superman in 20 years? Do we want to have people still loving the X-Men in 20 years? Or is it just about the collectivity and is it
Yeah.
just about the speculation? Because that's the part where you lose me. Like as a dad and as a teacher, I want people to be reading whatever it is. I want them to be passionate about whatever it is. So if it's manga and you're loving it, get it. Like go enjoy it. If it's
Absolutely.
Superman, if it's teenage pulp romance drama, like go for it. Like find your joy and then get into it,
Yeah. See, I would say like I'm a collector, but I don't sell books. I don't like
Right.
get into speculation. So I don't know if I could actually be categorized as a collector or just a big child.
I mean, it's a fine line, right?
Yeah, because I'm living like the childhood now that I didn't really get to back then.
And that's it. That's the whole thing. Like collect what you love and don't shame anybody for the way and how that they collect. It's
Yeah,
for you.
so I can definitely like see like the side of like having a big book and selling it to get another book that you love more.
Right?
That's like if you can like fund the hobby with the hobby, that's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, what loses me is like where it's all speculation and like this brand new book that just came out is $200 because some like minor first appearance of a character that's not gonna go anywhere later.
And they got 1 in 1,000 variants that are the same
Oh
as
yeah,
the basic variant, but it's foil or it's black and white. And
yeah,
that's the one that's worth now 50 times the price of whatever you paid for it.
yeah. That
I
like
think
one of the
that's
main
not good.
reasons one of the main reasons I decided to stop getting new books a couple years ago is because I was finding myself just buying covers because I liked the cover and I wasn't reading it.
Yeah.
And I decided I'm just going to buy and get what I'm actually going to read and enjoy. So I went back and I started trying to fill in some more of the books like the Dark Phoenix saga. I obviously can't read that because it's in the slabs, but I've got the trade paperback and I've read that thing I don't know how many times now. But
Right.
like if I'm going to get a slab, I'll make sure I have the trade of that storyline. But
Sure.
I mostly like collecting raw. There's only certain books I'll go slab for.
And my collecting has changed significantly in the last even like 5 years, where it's been less about, I got the big books that I really wanted to get. I got the keys that I really wanted to get. I could certainly try to upgrade and I could certainly try to like flip and grow and expand, but I've been more interested in these really fun collected editions and getting those
Yeah,
omnis or these hardcovers and getting the editions that I can read again and again and enjoy. And it's not about necessarily the newest stuff. It's just about the stuff that hit me for one reason or another emotionally.
yeah. It's like I think that's one of the reasons I'm wanting to like get into omnis because instead of just a trade where you've got like 6, 7 issues, the
Yeah.
omni's got the whole story like in one easy. Like I'm not gonna like I want to read the Reign of Superman story again, but I'm not gonna take these off my wall to do it.
Right, for sure. No,
So if I can get like the omni, I got the whole thing like right there
it's hard
available to
because some of
read.
them are like so unwieldy. Like you look at
Oh yeah, I
the
know it.
Jeff John. I've got the 3 volumes for the Jeff Johns Green Lantern,
That's
and
bigger than a phone book
it is
used to be.
absolutely like hard to read. Like they're just so massive. But it's nice to know that I can just like flip in whenever I want, like dive right back into whatever part wherever I want to like catch back up again. My preference is the Image Comics does these great oversized editions.
Oh yeah,
So you end up getting, what is this, 15 issues, and they're large format size, so they're bigger than the comic book size. So you get the artwork at a higher scale, and then you get 15 issues instead of just 6 or 10.
yeah.
And it's a great way to enjoy certain series. So I've been buying a ton of my favorite Image series when they do these nice hardcover
Oh nice.
oversized versions.
I've got the Long Halloween in a collection like that. It's the war
Yes.
edition. Yeah, I couldn't
Perfect.
believe it. There's a discount store here called Ollie's, and I found it for
Okay.
like $6.99.
What?
Yeah, it's
That's fantastic.
there's no way I was leaving it behind for that price.
Well, and I know that DC also does their absolute editions, which are pretty
Yeah.
amazing for if you have a story that you really want every scrap of entertainment out of it. Some of like I got the year one Batman year one version of absolute. It's so good,
Oh, nice.
so phenomenal.
That's another one like I've been wanting to like read again. I need to like look and see if there's like a trade of it somewhere.
Batman Year One has been released so many times. I've probably bought it in every trade and every hardcover version that they've got. And I realized somehow I had missed the Year One Absolute edition that they dropped. And I
Oh,
found it on eBay for a great price and I bought it. But it's actually like two huge hardcovers. One is like the regular story, top to bottom. The other is like the story, but with like added black and white material,
oh yeah.
added behind the scenes material. Really cool.
I think I want to say it's year 3 that I have in the single issues. I'm
Sure.
pretty sure.
That's the one with Robin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all great. I love Robin year one and Batgirl year one. They're all really interesting to me.
There's definitely some more like I think I got it from you in a contest or a prize tag or something. It was Batman Hush
Oh yeah.
and Superman for all seasons, I think.
Yes.
And I got them sitting right here. I still need to read those. I've been a little lazy about,
You
but
will
I've heard both of those were
oh,
amazing.
you'll fly through Hush just because Jim Lee's artwork. It
Yeah.
for me, like I came back into collecting after my girls were born and Hush was dropping. And I was like, Jim Lee, my X-Men guy, doing a Batman story. I was like, this is for me. And I read and bought every single issue of that run. And it's just, I mean, he draws a phenomenal Batman, a gorgeous Catwoman, and then all of the villains in that world. You know, you get your Joker, your Riddler, your Clayface. Like it's all.
Oh yeah.
It's a
I love
gorgeous story.
the Jim Lee art style for Batman.
Oh,
Coming from X-Men going to Batman. I love that, man.
you will flip, and it's a quick, speedy read, but you'll just find yourself staring at these pages where Batman has got Green Lantern's ring and he's punching Superman right in the face, and Superman's throwing his head back, and you're like, that is so freaking cool. It's just I geeked out so many times in that series.
SDA asked me a question earlier, and I'm just looking to see if I have the issue he's talking about.
You're diving in the short boxes. I wanted to comment on some of the things Bottom Tier Collector was saying. He said his son is beginning to learn to read. His imagination seems too big for comics. He would rather wear superhero costumes and pretend to be a superhero than read a comic. I respect that, man. Let him have it.
Man.
And with my girls, I worked really hard on being okay with them not loving what I loved. So they do not read a ton of X-Men. I jokingly say that like they know the characters because of me, but they are not like, ooh, let's give me the new X-Men issue, give me the new X. They don't want anything to do with it. Charlie likes old Silver Age DC. Kate loves more like modern, more manga, more like teen romance. So like let them find their joy wherever it is. Don't push it. But
I know Silver Age has a lot of fun stories.
Yeah, and the benefit of those too is you don't need. It's the opposite of what you and I were just talking about as far as omnis and collected editions. One issue is the whole book. Like it's the whole. There's no second part. There's no catch you later. There's no nothing. So you read that issue, you like it, and then you grab any other issue in the Silver Age, and you're right back at the beginning. You don't need any continuity, connective tissue stuff.
Yeah. That's what I like about that. Like when I started getting into the older Silver Age stories, like Kurt Swan Superman.
Sure.
I know it's like each issue was just like its own thing, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's true with like Charlie loved the like some of the World's Finest and stuff where you'd get different mix and match superheroes together, and she loved that kind of stuff.
I know I've got some of the Millennium editions of the older World's Finest.
Oh yeah.
And they're like just fun stories to go through and read.
Totally.
Like I remember one that I read in particular. It was I believe it was the first time that Bruce and Clark found out each other's identities. They were on like a cruise together or something.
Love
It
it.
was just crazy.
Yeah, Mark, I totally agree. Jeff Loeb is probably my favorite Batman writer. I'm a little biased, but like, yeah, Hush, Long Halloween. I think he even did, if I'm not mistaken, the Superman Batman, the original storyline,
Oh,
with
yeah.
which was like it had Supergirl, the Supergirl story. It had the Metallo story. Really great. The first like 20 issues of that were phenomenal. Batman, Superman stuff.
Now, I've got a few like random issues of that I haven't read in so long, man.
Man, so that came out a little bit after Hush. And I was like, oh, Michael Turner. I was into him, and he was doing the interior artwork for the second arc. And I was like, yes, this is phenomenal. So good.
Going back to SDA, he asked if I had Action Comics 643. I do. That
Ooh,
was
look at
the
that.
homage cover.
Great
Yeah.
homage cover. Yeah. That
I
is
remember
beautiful.
back in the day, this is one of the books I found at the flea market.
I love it.
And I don't even think I realized at the time that it was an homage cover because I
Well,
hadn't
how would
seen
you
the
know, right?
original,
Yeah.
the original book yet. But
I feel you on this one. I don't love Silver Age reading. I often struggle with some Silver Age. There's only certain, like, I'm not a mega Stan Lee like writer fan. I think his character creations and his story ideas were amazing and top tier. I think sometimes his dialogue was a little bit boring to read and
really,
not necessarily as interesting. But my daughter, Charlie, my youngest, loves like Archie and all of that sort of nostalgia era style writing. So for her, Silver Age comics, she even loves like old black and white movies. She's just she's a
that's
weird
awesome,
kid.
man.
Something wrong with her.
Might like be like a movie director or
I
something.
mean, hey, I would be phenomenal. Good for her.
Yeah,
I think she just enjoys like the old school stuff. Like Great Legend would probably vibe with Charlie 100%. Like old Silver Age stuff, old like what is it? Murder mystery movies and stuff, Bogart
yeah,
stuff. What is it? Nick and Nora Charles, like all that kind of stuff. She vibes for all that stuff.
that's awesome, man. I never did get into like too much of the older like classic movies like that. I remember my dad when I was younger. He if I say younger, I was in my 20s probably.
It counts. It's younger.
Yeah, he like introduced me to like Alfred Hitchcock
Oh,
and like some of those movies because
see, yeah,
I was like loved horror movies and
yeah.
stuff.
I grew up in a household where my dad was a huge movie buff and all black and white movies, old westerns, John Wayne. Like he likes to lie and say I was named for John Wayne and not my mom's brother John, but like he was way into that. So I grew up watching old movies, Bogart, James Stewart, you name it. Like that was me. As I got into it on my own, I found more love for Hitchcock. He's probably my favorite filmmaker. I absolutely love Hitchcock. His movies are so good. They hold up so well.
Oh yeah, I
And
think the
then,
first one I remember seeing I think was The Birds.
oh, good one. Yeah. And then I got on my own and I found that horror movies, like you're saying, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. I found
Yeah,
my own way, but then I've always sort of come back to the old stuff. I love the old movies. And my oldest, Kate, she'll suffer through it if she thinks it's going to be entertaining to her for some reason. Like we just watched, some old bogey films, some old bogey mysteries, and she'd quote suffer through it as a 16-year-old probably would. But Charlie, if she had her preference, would probably pick an old murder mystery old comedy if she had to choose. She doesn't like the westerns as much, but Bogart stuff, James Stewart stuff, she's all in it.
I remember being in school one day, and for some reason I can't remember why that day the teacher showed like an old movie. And I think it was Casablanca or something,
Oh God, what
and
a
I
great
was like 9, maybe 10. I was
movie.
bored out of
Of
my
course.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Charlie,
what is this?
I've always given Charlie a mixture of everything, and both girls, a mixture of stuff. I never really made them watch one type of thing. I was always trying to like just make them well-rounded and so that they could appreciate a lot of different things. The only thing I didn't let them watch until ultimately till this year is horror. And now I got a 16 and a 13-year-old and they want horror. So this last weekend we did Friday the 13th, we did Nightmare on Elm Street. We've been doing the legit like slasher graphic horror movies.
Send them over to JoJo's house, fixing comics.
Right.
Yeah.
She and I were talking because she was showing off her Friday the 13th movies, and I was like, dude, Friday the 13th. We watched Friday the 13th, part 1. It was hilarious. They've never seen that kind of stuff. And I mean, Kate, I will say they've watched Stranger Things. So they were like ready to be scared, but like, you know, some of those movies, like they were not scared of Nightmare on Elm Street at all. They were like, this movie's kind of cheesy. Like it's not good. They liked Friday the 13th more. They liked really? The original Friday the 13th more.
Have they seen?
I'm trying to think what else we did. We did a couple others recently.
Well, I think it was the 10th one, Jason X, the one where he went to space and got like the metal.
So ridiculous. And growing up,
that's so bad.
In the small town in SoCal where I grew up, there were some horror royalty. So the guy who lived across the street from me, he was the director of Jason Takes Manhattan. Like the quote New York one where they never actually get to New York except for the last like 2 minutes of the movie. He directed and then wrote that one. And then Freddy Krueger, the actor Robert Englund, still lives there. I see him walking around Laguna Beach all the time. The guy just goes to the beach and super friendly, super nice guy. He'll talk to anybody about anything.
Like if I would have seen Robert Englund when I was like a teenager, I would have been horrified.
Dude, that was us. Me and my friends who were so into horror.
Like movies. Just turn around and see like Freddy.
We would just be like, oh, he's right over there. We all knew where his house was, but you don't go there. You don't go to Freddy Krueger's house unannounced. You know, that would be freaky.
Be horrified.
So they're starting to get into it. Kate has seen a couple of the Scream movies, but I haven't let Charlie watch those because I want her to at least know the original horror movies first, because that's why I think you get the knowledge that makes Scream fun. You know, Night Tony, Night Legend, whoever's leaving. Sorry. So we haven't watched the first Halloween. I want to do the original 2 Halloween movies because those are among my personal favorites. I love those. Charlie's done some of the like M. Night Shyamalan. So we did Sixth Sense and we did Signs. You know, some of those
movies are like, wow, man.
Oh man, Signs scares the pants off of me. So many sequences in that movie just make me jump. Kate, my oldest, Lasso is right. My oldest has a friend who lets her come over and they watch horror. So they've cheated and snuck a few horror films before this year. And that's what ultimately broke the dam and made me feel like, okay, the gates have opened. I got to go and I got to get them. I got to make sure they watch it right.
I can't remember how old I was, but I remember the first like scary movie I saw was Child's Play.
Oh yeah, good one.
And I imagine I was too young to see that because I remember being scared to go to sleep with like my toys in the room.
Sure.
So I only had a few back then, but I remember like taking them outside, and we had like this water heater thing with a metal gate door on it, and I put them in that, and I snuck back in the house before I could go to sleep. I could not go to sleep with them in the house. I was freaked out.
Yeah. Oh, Mark Cuddy-Sark. Yeah, I heard that because I want to say Robert Englund and Mark Hamill were roommates, and that Englund tried out for the parts of Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and didn't think it was for him. And he told his roommate, you should try out for this movie. And then Mark, of course, got Luke.
That would have been a completely different film.
Yes,
Robert
absolutely. Well, Robert Englund is a classically trained actor. So it's funny that he ended up being known as this horror guy. And that's all.
It'd be hard for like the picture because the only thing I've ever known him from was like horror movies and stuff.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Like the Freddy Krueger, and he guest starred in like, I think he did like a cameo in the Scream movie.
Yep.
He played janitor or something.
Yeah, he was the professor in Urban Legend, that horror film.
Yeah.
With
it's like you picture Wes Craven or Robert Englund, and you just like it's hard to picture him outside of like the horror franchise.
Totally. TJ, are you making fun of us already? What you jump in here? You're crapping on me already. So I'm trying to pick the horror films for the girls that they see next. they've seen like some Hitchcock, like Rear Window and Rope. They haven't seen Psycho yet. They need to see Psycho. That's a good one.
Classic.
Oh man. And Vertigo, but I feel like Vertigo is somewhat boring, and I feel like it takes a more mature person to get it because it's not a fast-paced movie. It's a very slow, creepy movie. And it's probably my favorite, right up there with Rear Window. But like it took me a lot of viewings to really get it.
Yeah, I remember like some of the early 2000 movies when the paranormal thing was big, like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Like the movies was like so slow for the beginning. It takes a lot to like get through and get to like the scary part. It's just such a slow like build, especially the first one. I think nothing really happened until the last 10, maybe 15 minutes of the movie. As you're just sitting there for like the whole like first hour and a half, like when's something gonna
happen? Why am I watching this, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes those movies really work. I'll give you one that most people have never heard of that I think is a more modern horror movie that it messes with your mind. I'm just overjoyed seeing you unexpectedly. Well, there you go, T. That's a better way to say it. The movie's called The Invitation. And the premise of the movie is it's all in one house. And it starts with a couple driving to the house. And it's this guy and his new girlfriend going to see his ex-wife. And his ex-wife, who he hasn't seen in a long time, has invited him to this dinner party. And it's been an odd relationship. They broke up under very bizarre circumstances, and it's been a long time away. And she seems to have kind of found this new guy. And so they go into the house, and right off the bat, it's really awkward because they go in and they're in the foyer or whatever, and they're in the house and they're locked in. Like the husband like locks the door, and there's a ton of guests, and you're kind of like, what's going on? It's kind of weird. He's locking the door. And there's just a ton of off-putting things. And it's not a graphic movie. It's not an intense movie. This isn't Human Centipede or any of that stuff. Yeah. It's just really unsettling. And you start to feel like, is her new boyfriend a cult leader? Like, is this a cult? Is she like, has she lost it? And what are they invited here to do? Like, what is going to happen? And the movie walks the fine line between making you feel like, get out of this house. This is going to be a nightmare. And you're overreacting. It's nothing bad. This is not, you're letting your imagination run away with you, which is the best for me. The best kind of scary movie is like you question everything at all times. What's happening? What's going on? So I was sweating all through the movie because I'm like, either this is a comedy and these people are just off the wall, or this is a horror movie and it's going to go bad soon. Like you're on the edge of your seat. So it's called The Invitation. You probably would not recognize any of the actors in it, but they would be like, oh, that's the guy who plays the boyfriend in this other, whatever. But freaky. Like, I don't watch it at night with the lights off. And it has one of the best final shots. The last shot of the movie is this weird panoramic where you finally look outside the house and you see some of the world. And you're just like, you'll poop your pants. Like, it's just so cool. So it's a really good movie, The Invitation. If you haven't seen it, I'll check to see where it's streaming.
Yeah, I'm about to check that out because I like that kind of like where you don't really know what's going on, trying to figure it out type movie. Like I remember, I believe it was a Japanese horror film. It was so weird. It was called The Audition or just
Oh my God.
And like the whole movie was like this like weird dating service setup or something. And, like nothing really crazy happened until like the end. All of a sudden, this one was like this like crazy torture with like acupuncture needles and
oh my God,
piano wire.
That movie absolutely
that took a turn.
Messes you up.
Yeah.
Okay, so The Invitation should be free if you have Amazon Prime. If you've got Prime, you can go on Amazon Prime and you can check it out. But yeah, freaky, really cool, from 2015.
Yeah, I like those kind of more suspenseful movies now, as opposed to like those like slasher movies when I was younger.
I think horror is one of those genres that has gone through several like phases, because obviously we had the torture porn, which is probably my least favorite horror genre.
The Saw movies and stuff.
Yeah, where it's just all, let's see how graphic and disgusting we can get. And
I enjoyed the first Saw movie, but that franchise very quickly went super, super crazy.
Yeah, and all the Hostel movies and the Human Centipede movies. And it's
I didn't even watch Hostel, man. I
I
saw
want,
like one trailer
yeah.
of Hostel, and I was like, I
Well,
don't need to see this movie.
no, I don't want any of that. I prefer a good psychological thriller, and Mark's dropping The Ring, which I love. If you haven't
Yeah, I
seen
like The
the,
Ring.
I think is it a Korean or a Japanese original film? Ringu is freaky good. Like, so I like the Japanese version better. So
I'm
good.
about to check that out. I've never seen the Japanese original.
What I
I
liked
think
about it was they included some supernatural stuff, not just the
yeah,
girl, but like the concept that the dad and the son, who are like two of the main characters in Ring, share a psychic ability. And it's kind of like The Shining in the sense that you have characters who
oh
maybe
nice.
have this special ability you don't know.
Yeah,
Really
I
cool.
know Shining's like one of my all-time favorites. So I'm gonna have to check out the Japanese version.
Yeah, so it's called Ringu. It just has a U on the end of ring.
Yeah,
It's just Ringu.
I
But
think
that's a really
they
good
did the
one.
same thing with The Grudge. They had the original
Yep.
Japanese version and they
Yep.
had the American version.
Absolutely. So, like, then we had that paranormal phase where you were talking about where there's a lot of
Yeah,
ghosts and a lot of spooky ghost stories. The slasher films when we were younger, that was the big genre.
yeah,
But I grew up with the Hitchcock movies, so it was always more like psychological, and what you don't see is the scary stuff, right?
yeah,
Jaws
yeah.
is a great example of that. So that's what I grew up with, and I think that's what I just gravitate to more. There's a Nicole Kidman did that movie called The Others that freaked the crud out of me in the theaters, where it's all just like, really, it's just sound effects because you're like, you hear noises upstairs and the sound moves across the TV
Yeah.
screen from one speaker to the other, and like creepy door. You know, I thought we closed all that. Now the doors are open, and I thought we put the curtains up, and the curtains are gone, and it was like crazy. It really
Yeah,
freaked the crap
that's
out.
probably like the great thing about seeing it in a theater with like the sound,
Yes.
like
Oh my
because
god. Yeah, because you're
that'd probably amazing.
oh my goodness, you're constantly like feeling like there's something right behind you. Yeah.
Tony.
I thought you left, Tony. What are you doing here? Oh, that was, I think it was Legend leaving. Okay.
Yeah,
Now I get it.
I've never seen that one.
Yeah, I don't know that one, Mark. So we're
Something that would
finally
be
trying
something
some
more
horror movies.
psychological.
Yeah. I mean, those are the ones that stick with me, and then I can't get out of my head, you know? And I heard, I was having a conversation with Whitewell Comics about stories at one point, and he made the comment that, any, comics, movies, books, TV show, whatever, the goal should be to allow you to experience an emotion in a safe space.
Yeah,
So whatever that is, whatever it is, you want to experience tragedy and just cry your eyes out in a safe space, here's that movie, here's that story. You want to experience a comedy and just laugh in a safe space, like here it is. You don't have to worry. Meet the Parents is a great example of like, it's hilarious because it's not happening to you. If you
yeah,
were Ben Stiller in Meet the Parents, it's a nightmare story, right? It's a dark tragedy. And then horror is a chance to feel fear in a safe space. Like I don't have to worry about Michael Myers breaking through my window and trying to kill me. Like I can experience it in a safe space.
yeah,
So I think it's an interesting way to understand that like some people don't like to be scared. They don't want to feel fear. And or other people like, I don't want to cry. I don't want to just be sitting here bawling my eyes out. Like I don't need that. And they don't want to be feeling that even in a safe space. Okay, be that way. Good night. Tony. It's 10 o'clock. You probably should go to bed.
we love you, old wolf.
So my wife, for example, is not a horror fan. So every one of these movies, she's like, I'm gonna go in the living room and watch my own movie. You guys do your thing.
Yeah,
But it's part of being allowed to feel fear and then be able to like turn it off when it's all done and be like, yeah, that was fun. I don't need to, I'm not gonna be chased by Freddy Krueger tonight. I'll be okay. So I think that's a
like
cool way to
if I
look
could
at it.
watch something now, and it gives me chills, I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I think we all have that genre that speaks to us more because maybe we want to feel that sensation of action.
Yeah,
Like I want to be on the edge of my seat and be excited. I'm never going to be a super spy, but I want to see James Bond jump off a roof
yeah.
and grab on the bottom of the helicopter and fly away. Like I want to see that. That's cool.
Oh, no doubt. It's like so many movies. Like I remember from the '90s were just nothing but action, like all the way through.
And I think
And
everybody
and a
clicks
lot
into
of
it at a different
those,
place, you
yeah,
know?
a lot of those, if you try to go back and watch them now, it just seems so like over the top and cheesy.
Some of them hold up. I mean, obviously the iconic ones, the Die Hards and the Lethal Weapons, and
Yeah, yeah, but like going back and trying to watch almost any Steven Seagal movie,
yes.
or
Then
like,
you have the second tier or the
yeah,
third tier, you know.
yeah, or some of the later stuff when Arnold started mixing in like some comedy with his
Ooh,
like
yeah,
Last Action Hero,
yeah,
or some of his other stuff like I can't I think it
yeah.
was '80s though when he was it late '80s or early '90s when he did Twins with Danny DeVito.
That was an '80s movie, but then
'80s.
Junior was in the '90s when
Oh
he
yeah,
reunited with Danny.
man, I almost forgot about that one.
No, I think there was an era of action that was all about how big can your muscles be, right?
Yeah,
And it was you had
yeah,
your
that's like
Jean Claude's and you
Predator and
had your Arnold's and
yeah,
Sly Stallones, and I think it was just uh,
Bloodsport and those kind of
yeah,
movies.
and certainly for the time there was some very good entertainment in there. And Arnold's got some classic movies that are
Oh
highly
yeah,
entertaining. And my girls have enjoyed many of his movies, but at the same time they can watch a movie like Commando and be like, this is freaking ridiculous.
yeah.
Did he just pick that car up and flip it over? What the heck,
Dude
man?
like carrying trees around in the forest.
Right. And I think, as great as a movie as Predator is,
Yeah,
Commando is clearly like a step down in quality, but can still be just as entertaining, right?
yeah. Like some of his earlier stuff, like was it Running Man and
Yes.
Total Recall?
Running Man, based on a Stephen King book.
Oh,
Really,
I didn't know
really,
that.
yeah. So Stephen King, he had this series of this period of time when he would publish books under a fake name called Richard Bachman.
Oh,
And he wanted to see if his writing was good still, or if it was just people loved anything with his name on it. So he
yeah.
published under a pen name for a little while. And Running Man was one of his books that he
I had
published.
no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize there was a book
Yeah.
for Running Man.
And I want to say, I can't remember who wrote the screenplay, but it might have been Stephen King himself that had written the
Huh,
screenplay for that.
that's
Because he
pretty
was
cool.
so mad about The Shining. I know you and I can appreciate
Oh
Stanley
yeah,
Kubrick's The Shining. Stephen King hated that movie and was so upset about what they did to his book.
yeah. I heard he had big issues with that movie.
And I think it comes from not understanding the differences between the genre of writing, the genre of a novel and the media of a
Yeah,
genre of a novel and the media of film. Because I think Kubrick elevated that property and elevated it into something even better. But I think he's unable to see it. He's unable to detach himself emotionally because he was so
yeah.
invested in it. And then he
Now
tried to
I've never actually read the book, so I don't know the
well,
differences really.
if you want to see an authentic adaptation, it was in the late 90s, I think early 2000s, that Stephen King wrote a screenplay for The Shining, and they made it as a movie miniseries. And here's where it gets buck wild. They cast, from the TV show Wings, they cast Steven Weber as the Jack Nicholson
Really?
character. He's horrible. He is not good. And he one of the things that irked Stephen King the most was that they used an axe to chop down the door. It's supposed to be a croquet mallet in the book, and it's
Huh.
so stupid watching Steven Weber try to break down a door with a croquet mallet. It looks so awful on screen. Give him the axe. The axe is scary. Like, the mallet is stupid. You see Stephen King.
I'm gonna have to look that up, see if there's any clips on YouTube.
Yeah, and you can probably stream it for free because nobody wants to watch this damn
Yeah.
thing. And it's like 4 hours long. It's like epic in length. But yeah, so Stephen King got what he wanted. He got to make his version of The Shining, but nobody ever wants to watch it again because the original is scarier.
I didn't know any of that, man. I've never looked that stuff up.
Well, I think Stephen King's been around so long and has so many adaptations of his work
Yeah.
that I think he's probably been in and out of the movie industry more than most novelists.
Yeah. Like when I hear Stephen King, like the first movie that comes to mind is like Pet Cemetery.
Ooh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
For
That
me, it's
that
probably
that was like one of the
Misery.
early ones.
Like Misery comes to mind
Oh
pretty
yeah, with
quickly for me.
Kathy Bates. Yeah.
Yeah. But my favorite King stuff are always his dramas. So like Shawshank Redemption and The Green
Stephen King did
Mile.
that?
Yeah. So one of Stephen King's, I think, best books is actually 4 short books put together in one novel called Different Seasons. Maximum Overdrive, good one. Good one.
The only thing
That's
I remember about that movie is that Green Goblin
that truck.
truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emilio Estevez.
Yeah.
So Different Seasons has a book or a short novel book for every season of the year. And 3 of them have become mainstream big budget movies. And Shawshank Redemption is one. That's Spring Hopes Eternal or whatever. And it's a great adaptation of that story. And then a book called The Body became Stand By Me. The movie about
Oh,
the 4 kids going in through the woods to find a dead body in the woods
yeah.
is a Stephen King story. And then the third one is called Apt Pupil, which they made into a movie with Brad Renfro and Ian McKellen about a kid who thinks that the man living next door is a Nazi. And he tries to trick him into like telling him what happened and like relive it. And it's really creepy and really Ian McKellen is scary as heck as this neighbor.
I'm
So
definitely going to have to look this stuff up, man.
they've adapted most of the book, the stories in that book, but Shawshank is easily my favorite one. So good, and then of course Green Mile with Tom
Oh yeah,
Hanks is another
Shawshank and
great
Green
one.
Mile. But I had no
Oof,
idea Stephen King was attached to those.
so good, and based on his books, obviously, it's great stuff. You're
Yeah.
scraping the bottom of the barrel. Hey, get out of here, bearded comic bro. You're get to stepping, buddy. We're talking more
I,
movies though,
yeah.
bearded.
But I mean, we're mentioning books. They just happen to not be comics.
Right?
Like, I remember one Stephen King novel I tried to read. Um, I want to say it was early to mid 2000s. It
Mhm.
was Dreamcatcher,
Oh yeah.
and that was pretty good. And then I saw the movie a little bit later, and it's kind of mixed on the movie.
No. Uh, I know that King has made a really good friendship with Frank Darabont, who has done, I think, 5 King films now. He wrote and directed Shawshank, Green Mile, Dreamcatcher, you just mentioned. He worked on
Yeah.
that. And then he did was it called The Mists? The Mist?
Oh, he
With
did
Thomas
that.
Jane, where like the
Yeah.
fog takes over the town, but there's some kind of mysterious creature in the fog. And I think there's one other that I'm forgetting, but Darabont has become like King's favorite adapter, so that he's like, I've got this story, I really want to make a movie out of it. Well, talk to Frank Darabont. That guy knows Stephen King backwards and forwards.
That's pretty cool. The Mist. It reminded me of that M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Happening, where it
Oh,
was just the place.
I know that I've only ever watched the movie The Mist in its black and white version, and I don't know if you've seen it that way. It's a slightly
No,
different
I haven't seen
edited
that.
version, and then there's no like that. They basically do the whole film in grayscale, and it looks fantastic. I never have, Bub. And
I've heard of Dark Tower, but I haven't read it.
I when I was a kid and that series was being published, I remember King saying that he was going to write that series until he died, and he was never going to stop, and it was going to be the longest running fantasy series. And what turned me off to it was how people were saying, yeah, in the middle it kind of slows down, it's not as good, and then he kind of rushed a quick ending onto the end, as Stephen King is wont to do.
Uh,
Uh, so I never got into it because I heard that after the first few books, it slogs down and then it ends really poorly. And at that point, you've invested, 5,000 pages of reading.
oh yeah.
And that's ultimately my biggest frustration with Stephen King, the writer, is a lot of his stories do not end well. And as much as I loved the first 3/4 of The Stand, which might be one of my favorite 3/4 of any book, the last 1/4, he poops the bed pretty bad there.
Oh man.
And he even admits it. He'll talk about how he's like, I didn't know how to end it, so I kind of had God come down and kill the bad guys. And I was like, that's not how you end a book, man. That's just like he's like, he routinely talks about how hard it is for him to end a story and that it's tricky for him. And it ends up, some of them end up feeling rushed. Like I felt like It and The Stand, two of his longest books, have two of the worst endings.
That those are like other like the I've seen like the original It movie and the new one they made, but I've never read the books.
Sure. And did you feel like, because I know that I felt like the second movie to It is nowhere near as good as the first movie.
No, I didn't think so. I thought the first was better. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's his typical style where he writes an amazing beginning, an amazing idea, and then gets to the end and is like, I don't know what to do now. And just kind of quickly finishes it up. Richard Dawson, TJ's talking about the guy who plays the game show host in Running Man.
Oh yeah.
Because he was that Family Feud host for a while in real life, you
Yep.
know, and then he played the character in Running Man that like hosted the game show. My answer was no, because I heard bad things. How's that? Is that the short? You want the shorter, the cliff notes there?
Just the little like explanation on the back of the book. I remember
Well,
I used to like read
he doesn't
like,
read the
read
comics,
those
yeah.
in school instead of reading the book.
You can't read the
Or if there was a
comics. Too
movie,
too many
I'd read
words.
the movie and try to
He
do the
needs
book
more-
report.
He just wants the pictures. He just wants to see the pictures in the book. Well,
But
for you,
are there any other like horror-based comics? Since we're talking a lot of horror that you liked.
I mean, I think we're in a really nice heyday of horror comics. There's a ton of stuff out there that is really interesting. There was a I can't remember what the publisher was. I don't think it was Scout, but maybe it was called It Eats What Feeds It. That was freaky, really weird. About some kind of like haunted creature that kind of like draws young guys in and then like leeches life out of them. Like really creepy. Scotty Young did a book called The Me You Love in the Dark.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Really cool. And the first issue is this woman who wants to be a writer moves away to a small town where she thinks she can focus more on her writing and thinks that the house is haunted and is falling in love with her. And you can't decide. And I'll try not to curse on your channel here. You can't decide if she is falling in love and wants to get it on with the ghost in her house, or if the ghost in her house is going to try to kill her. And you can't tell where the story is going to go. It could go either direction, and super freaky. And I think that comic ended really well. And it's not drawn by Scotty, but it's written by Scotty, and it's really, really good. What other ones have I been reading? Gideon Falls by Jeff Lemire, about the haunted house traveling through space and time that's like corrupting people in different times and eras in this one like New England area, and people get drawn into it in the middle of the night. It's like calling to you, and you go into it, and then you turn into this psycho killer, but you come out in like a different decade and you're killing people in that town, and people are like,
that sounds like
crazy
a cool
killer. Yeah, buck wild. And I think it's just two of these volumes, so it's probably like 24, 36 issues total. Jeff Lemire's Gideon Falls.
It's funny, like as much as I liked horror movies, like coming up and still today, I never really got into any horror comics.
Well, I
Like
think
the only ones I've really read was like the 2 volumes of Walking Dead that I won on one of the old Comic shows.
Sure.
And ended up like liking those more than the show almost. So I've like been meaning to get more of those Walking Dead comics.
Sure.
But yeah, I would definitely like to find some cool like horror based comic trades to read.
I think the challenge of horror comics is that you don't have some of the key elements that make horror movies work, which are sound effects and music, right? When you cut out
like imagination,
the creepy, you've got to have it. The artwork has to be so good that you are scared looking at it. right? That the creatures on the page pop out at you. And they do that really well in like Gideon Falls. Even Department of Truth has this creepy psycho killer, serial killer character that is really kind of freaky. And they do a good job of drawing that character in a ton of different psychedelic ways.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the like independent companies put out a lot of great horror based stuff.
I think it sells real easily. It's you don't have to have an IP, right? There's no intellectual property where you got to have like, oh, it's the Men in Black or it's the it's Superman. You don't need a character that people know. You just need to have a hook that people are like, ooh, something's killing the children. Just the title, and you're like,
yeah,
I'm interested. I don't know what this is, but I'm interested. Yes, Bernie Wrightson, obviously during the Bronze Age, TJ is totally right. He knew horror and could just slay.
I remember like seeing a few of the, I think it was called Twisted Tales.
I
remember seeing a few of those like back at flea markets and stuff, but back then I was just only into like superhero stuff, so I never picked any of those up.
And there were a bunch of like monster comics too, like where just the creature comics, freak people out. I loved them. Obviously, once I found out there was a superhero character with my name, John Jameson is he's a Spider-Man villain, and he's J. Jonah Jameson's son. He's the Man Wolf. I found the series Creatures, not Creatures by Night. It's Creatures by, it's Creature. Oh, good Lord. TJ's going to kill me right now. He's like typing really fast. I think it was Creatures by Night, maybe. Creatures, something. And it was a bunch of really fun, like, they weren't scary, but it was like monster stories. And they were really fun. They were really well done. And a ton of them starred the Man Wolf. He was in a bunch of them.
Oh, yeah.
God, it's killing me what it's called. Something Creatures. TJ's like, John, you said you're a fan. What's wrong with you? And shout out to Old Wolf. He's probably not still in the chat, but he sent me when I went to Baltimore Comic-Con a handful of years ago, he sent me for in-flight entertainment. He mailed me the collected edition. There it is, Creatures on the Loose. Of all the Man Wolf story. There's a Man Wolf large trade paperback. It's like thick. There's like 20 something issues in this thing. And it's all the Creatures on the Loose, all the Amazing Spider-Man early appearances, all the Marvel team up appearances with like Morbius and stuff. But it's a bunch of great monster. You get vampires and werewolves, and it's all like monster based.
That sounds good, man.
Yeah, it's more action and more like Marvel. Yeah. It's not horror, but it's still fun.
I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago, DC came out with a series called Basket Full of Heads, I think it was.
Yes.
And I never did pick those up, but I heard some people say it was good, and I heard some people say it was just kind of average.
I've heard good things about that, and I've heard great things about Ice Cream Man, which is a horror anthology series.
Some people say good things about that.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I struggle with anthology books. Like I want to get deeper into characters. I don't want to have like one issue and then they're never going to appear again. Like that I struggle with that. But I did think Bueller reached out to me at one point and he said, I know you don't read Ice Cream Man. You got to buy the issue that dropped this week. You'll love it. And it like almost brought me to tears because it was like this tragic father story, and it was not horror. Oh, yeah? It was just like gut punch to the emotions. So I think the cool thing about an anthology book like Ice Cream Man is you can clearly play with a ton of emotions like a Twilight Zone would, Ooh, Warren Magazine. All right. What's up, Chop? What's going on, Chop?
What's going on, Chop? Appreciate you popping in, man.
We're talking horror books, comics, movies, all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, we got into a whole horror world because it's Halloween and my girls are watching a ton of that stuff right now. I couldn't believe how much fun it was to rewatch Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th with them. It was really entertaining.
Gosh, it's been a while since I saw the originals.
You get to see Kevin Bacon and Johnny Depp eat it.
Yeah. The last one I saw, I think it was Freddy's Dead.
I
rewatched that a couple of years ago. It came on TV. There's one where we had like the Nintendo Power Glove. That was so weird.
I love it. Oh, I love it. That's so great. Oh man. Yeah,
They did.
I watched so much horror in high school that I kind of burnt out on it. I watched everything, man. Everything, every Hellraiser, every Halloween, every Friday the 13th. I watched so much of it. And by the time the like late 90s hit, I just stopped. And then so thankfully I missed out on a lot of the like paranormal stuff, a lot of the like the torture porn eras. I kind of
Yeah.
I would see like the key, like the most popular, biggest ones that were the best, quote unquote. But I got away from it pretty hard. So it's kind of fun to go back now and kind of watch some stuff with the girls again.
Yeah. I just kind of transferred like as I got older from the like more slasher to more paranormal style as I got
Sure.
older and more like psychological horror. Because
Yeah.
I like the whole aspect of like trying to figure something out when you're watching a movie.
Oh,
Like I
absolutely.
remember one in particular, it was a Johnny Depp film. It was called, I think it was called Secret Window,
Yes.
where
Yeah.
he was a writer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
That
that was
one's
pretty
freaky.
good from what I remember. Yeah.
Hey, Fire Guy Ryan in the chat.
What's up, Ryan?
He's a big horror fan. In fact, we went on a few different live streams, I think, right, Ryan, talking about favorite horror movies. And he got me watching I think I watched Invitation because of him. There's a 2-movie series called Creep about like a stalker guy. It's really weird that I watched because of Ryan. He got me into trying to watch more modern horror because I had skipped out on so much of it. Ooh, another great modern horror, if you haven't seen it, freak the heck out of you, is called Hereditary.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this one?
No.
Okay. So the concept is and I'm going to blow it a little bit because the detail, some of the details might be, oh, there it is. See, there it is. Ryan even mentioned it. A matriarch dies, like the grandmother in a family, right? And there's all these strange people that show up at the end of her life that mom and granddaughter never really knew, and they're trying to figure out like why are these people here, what's going on. And there's this weird cult kind of thing going on, and then granddaughter starts acting odd, like she just starts having weird night terrors, and then there's this weird car accident where they're like, what's wrong with her? And you're starting to piece together that there's this like cult around their grandmother and what it was that she was trying to pass down from mom to grandmother to daughter. And as this movie builds, it gets creepy and creepy. Like you are just like, what's going to happen? The little granddaughter is like, nothing's creepier than little creepy kids. Like it's freaky.
Oh yeah.
And it just builds beautifully.
Omen and stuff like that, and
Oh man.
Exorcist.
I legitimately would say it's scarier than The Exorcist, which I don't
Really?
say about a ton of things.
I remember like only watching the original Exorcist one time when I was like younger, and then I was like, I never want to I never want to see that.
And that one is streaming on it looks like HBO. So if you have HBO streaming services, you can check out Hereditary. My daughter's not ready for that one yet. No. They're
I don't like
fine
right
with like,
now. I don't have like any streaming services right now.
sure. But you maybe go to your local library and get the
Yeah.
discs.
But I know
That's worth
there's
it.
a few like free ones where they have like a bunch of different horror films that I've been meaning to check out.
Yep. That's the best thing I've had about our Roku is being able to load other little channels that are totally free, like Freevee or whatever, that like will have a couple of odd movies that you're like, how does that
I
one?
know,
I haven't
like
seen that
there's
one.
just on my TV here it says a place where it just says watch free, and there's a whole like list of different horror movies that are just on demand. You can just
for
watch
sure.
anytime.
Yeah.
A lot of them are like straight to like DVD stuff and really B-rated, but some of those are just like cheesy and fun to watch.
I can't say enough for having a DVD Blu-ray player in a library. Like just go to the library and you can find pretty much any movie you want to check out, and you don't have to worry about it, any of that stuff. I know that people are trying to get away from physical media, but obviously you, me, and your audience, we love physical media. We're comic.
Yeah, I would much rather have the movie, the book, the album, whatever it is. I would much rather have the actual item in my hand.
Truly, for sure. But yeah, Ryan's right. Hereditary and The Invitation would probably be the two modern horror movies if people haven't seen them. That if they want to watch something that's gonna freak them out, there you go. Those will
Definitely
get
gotta
you.
check those out later.
And TJ, I'm sure I saw The Exorcist 3, but I don't know that I remember any of those but the first one. My memory on some of those.
I don't remember ever watching any of the sequels because the first one freaked me out so bad.
Well, like I said, I watched all of that stuff. The Halloween, Hellraisers, all of that stuff back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Faces of Death. Oh my God. I can't believe I watched that.
Yeah, I remember the Hellraiser movies freaked me out.
Yeah, man.
And gosh, there were so many like weird ones. It was I remember one called Puppet Master.
Yes.
I remember I think there was one called Phantasm.
Yes. Yeah. Phantasm was that.
There was like so many
because
we would go like back then. We went to a laundromat back in the early 90s, and right next to the laundromat was a video store. So I would always hang out in the video store while my mom was at the laundromat. And like every Thursday or Friday, they had like 50-cent rentals on VHS. So I would like rent like just all the different scary movies I could find, and I saw like so much like Maniac Cop, the Puppet Master movies. I think there was one called Wishmaster.
Oh yes, there was.
Yeah, I think there was one called Prophecy or something like that.
Yes.
I would just rent like all the different scary movies I could think of that I could find.
Christopher Walken was in the first Prophecy movie.
Yeah,
he's great. Yeah, TJ, the Conjuring movies are really good as far as modern ghost, like spooky horror, stuff. Those are good.
I know. I saw the original Insidious movie, but I haven't seen any of the sequels from that yet.
Yes, Insidious. The first Insidious is a freaky movie.
Yeah.
I was a big Reanimator is a great movie, TJ, but it's more of a comedy.
I remember that.
Great. Yeah. I loved John Carpenter, so like for me, like The Thing was a freaking good sci-fi classic.
Super classic right there.
And then of course he did Halloween, and he just always had this knack for getting under your skin a little bit. I always liked, and he did one of his late 90s ones was In the Mouth of Madness, and that movie is freaky too. That's a good movie.
I don't think I've seen that one.
That's Sam Neill is an insurance not an adjuster, but he works for an insurance company. And the story centers around a publishing company that has a Stephen King level author who's super popular, and he writes horror books that everybody loves, but he's gone missing. And his newest novel is due to be published, but nobody can find it. So Sam Neill comes in and he's like, this is an insurance scam. You guys are just going to have him pop up somewhere and it's going to drive the sales of his book up. You don't need me. This is a scam. And they're like, no, we really need to find this guy before the book is published. So he goes on like the hunt to find this author named Sutter Kane, very Stephen King-esque. And of course it leads to is it a real nightmare or is it not? He finds the small town where all of this guy's books take place, and it is a horror-filled land. And the new novel is ready, and the new novel is the story we're watching in the movie. Like it is that story. He is the main character in the new novel, Sam Neill. And he's like, it's like the writer is writing him. It's really freaky, psychedelic.
That sounds pretty cool, man.
Yeah. And it's very gore, John Carpenter loved his creature creations, right? You remember in The Thing when that head falls off and like sprouts legs and runs off, like it's very much in keeping with those like Stan Winston monster creation stuff. There's two Prophecy movies. One is a mutant bear. Later, the angel one. There's no relationship but the name. Okay, there you go.
I don't think I remember seeing one with a mutant bear in it.
I don't either, but I know that they made sequels, Prophecy 2 and 3, to the original, to the Christopher Walken movie.
Yeah.
What's up,
but I remember sometimes they'll do, I don't know if it's really horror. It was more like a action type movie, but they did Snakes on a Plane. Right. I remember not long after that movie came out, they did like this crazy, like straight to like DVD knockoff movie. It was called Snakes on a Train.
Yeah.
And it took like a supernatural turn, and at the end of the movie there was this horrible looking like giant CGI CGI snake that like swallowed the whole train.
I
It was
love it.
so stupid.
Oh my god! You can tell they knew what their audience was, though, right? It's like
Yeah.
the Sharknado
Yeah,
crowd, right?
it ended up like having nothing to do with like the original movie. They just called it Snakes on a Train.
I love it.
And it was just such a bad like knockoff
Uh,
weird movie.
I would say one of my favorite horror like subgenres is the serial killer. Like I love a good freaky killer on the loose kind of movie.
Oh
So
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
Silence of the Lambs.
Oh yeah.
Oh
That
my
the first one that
god.
comes to mind was I think it was called Stepfather. It had
Yeah.
the actor that
Terry
played John
O'Quinn.
Locke. Yeah,
Yeah, Terry
John
O'Quinn.
Locke, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that movie from back in the day. That freaked me out.
But like I've read all the Hannibal Lecter books, and I've seen the TV series a few times. So good. I love that whole world that they crafted for Signs of the Lambs. And one of the better ones, as far as like serial killer movies, is the movie Zodiac with a ton of comic book actors in it. It's Robert Downey Jr., it's Jake Gyllenhaal, it's Mark Ruffalo. It's like a ton of Avengers
Really?
together.
I'm about to check that out. I don't think I've seen that one.
So obviously it's the story of the Zodiac killer up in San Francisco and his killing spree and his taunting of the cops, which was the basis of the Dirty Harry film. And they recreate his crimes. But what's cool about the movie, and the director is David Fincher, who did Seven. And what's cool about the movie is they choose only to show you on screen the attacks that the Zodiac committed where there was a witness. So it's super freaky because you're basically watching a reenactment with huge quality of real moments that were told via victims surviving or
So
people who are eyewitnesses.
Kind of like a documentary style.
It definitely feels real. It's not, I'm not going to call it a documentary because it's definitely not, but there's been a ton of books published on this topic, and they took one of them that was incredibly in depth because it was written by a cartoonist at the San Francisco Chronicle who was there working at the paper. And then that's the Jake Gyllenhaal character. And then Downey Jr. plays the reporter who's covering these cases, who gets way too close to what's going on here and just starts to go off the deep end. And then Mark Ruffalo plays this local city cop who's very famous and is the basis for Dirty Harry in the Dirty Harry films. And Steve McQueen's Bullet as well, San Francisco cop Bullet. And really, really good movie, Zodiac. If you like a good creepy, if you want a movie that's going to make you keep you up at night because it feels real, because this is not Freddy, Jason, whatever. This is like real people, real life. This happened. This is real. And
I'll have to throw that on like the to watch later list.
Make sure you got daylight outside. It's one of those that it'll haunt you. Let me see where that.
I remember like one in particular. I remember with Robin Williams. I think it was called 1 Hour Photo.
Yes.
And that was the first time I had ever seen Robin Williams do a role that wasn't comedic. So I had no idea like he had that
creepy
that range to do all that different styles and stuff.
And then he worked
with
Al
that
Pacino.
Was the first time.
Yeah.
I'd seen him do a horror style.
He did a movie with Al Pacino and directed by Christopher Nolan, who did the Batman films and Inception and all that other stuff, called Insomnia. And it's a remake of I think it's a Norwegian film or a Swedish film, all about a cop going to a small town where there's been a couple of murders and they're trying to figure it out. And the cop gets way too wrapped up in what's going on and then figures out who's the killer, but he can't tell people who it is because it'll implicate himself. So then it's like he's stuck helping the killer. Super wild. So Robin Williams plays the bad guy. Al Pacino plays the cop. And then Hilary Swank plays the local town detective. Really good.
That sounds pretty good.
Zodiac is streaming for Showtime fans. Zodiac is streaming on Showtime and I think Hulu.
Oh, nice. Is that a real thing, Lasso? Or did somebody like
no, he's
cut the trailer to make it look like that?
I've seen that, but it's funny. And it's funny. Somebody recut it, yeah. as a comedy, as you know, like a YouTube joke.
Yeah. I'm about to look that up.
Yeah, I
But
love
yeah,
good horror. It's funny because I
so
don't
many
watch a
good
ton
ones,
of it.
man. And there's
Yeah.
so many bad ones too that are still kind of good because they're so bad.
Did you ever watch Critters?
Yeah, I remember that one. And
So stupid. They
one of
like
the worst ones that,
alien little
yeah,
fluff balls that shoot darts.
yeah.
It's so stupid.
Like when I first heard about it, like I remember thinking back in the day it'd maybe be something like Gremlins,
Yeah, right.
but it wasn't.
It
It
was
was
definitely
so
like trying to hit on the same
yeah.
Gremlins
And like
vibe.
what was Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Attack of the Killer Tomato, so many like
Oh my god,
cheesy
so
movies
funny.
that were fun, but yeah,
They're not high quality, but they're
nah,
definitely like sea level movies.
definitely.
Evil Dead or Army of
Oh yeah,
Darkness, right? Sam Raimi's
yeah,
early stuff.
yeah. I think like Army of Darkness. I think I remember seeing that first and then going back and watching Evil Dead later and like being so confused when I watched the first Evil Dead and then the second Evil Dead. Like
I
I didn't
can't
know what
remember.
like I didn't
Yeah,
it threw
I
me
can't
off
remember the.
bad.
I don't remember the order I watched those, but yeah, they definitely are because the first one is basically just remade when they made the second one, but they
Yeah.
just called it number two. So it's very easy to get lost in the continuity of
Because
that
it was like
universe.
watching the same movie over again with like
Absolutely,
less
yeah,
cast members.
yeah, and slightly better special effects budget.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure I saw like Army of Darkness first and I remember it being like the first horror comedy that I ever saw like mixed together.
Sure.
But there's been some pretty good horror comedies like Shaun of the Dead.
Oh yeah, that's a great
Uh,
pick.
was that Tucker and Dale versus Evil? That was crazy.
I'm trying to think
But
of
yeah,
good
I didn't
horror
know like
comedies.
that genre of horror comedy existed until I saw Evil Dead or Army of Darkness back in the day.
Well, I think obviously, even some of the Friday the 13th movies became
Oh yeah, some of
that.
the like
Like
the
it
again like
became
Freddy Krueger
campy.
with the Nintendo Power Glove.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they became self-aware and they wanted the audience to laugh at the ridiculous or be shocked at the crazy kills, and Jason does something wild, he kills somebody with a pool cue or whatever. Like it's
yeah.
designed to be so campy that you're laughing, but it's also like exciting because you don't know when he's going to jump out next or whatever.
I remember again like going back to like Jason X with the in space and like the cryogenically frozen and getting like the crazy like half mechanical like nanotech body. It's
Oh my
like
god,
Terminator style Jason.
so funny.
I really like I've watched that movie so many times. It's like one of those things where you just have to watch it. And it was kind of the same with Freddy versus Jason. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed that too. It's just a fun movie to watch.
for sure. Yeah.
And yeah, some of the later Child's Play movies got kind of ridiculous, like Bride of
Bride
Chucky.
of Chucky.
Yeah, but like the originals seemed like so scary at the time because I was watching them as like a smaller kid.
Yeah. I think that's as you're getting older and you're used to what they're doing, I think it becomes a comedy, right? It becomes silly. And then, in fact, there were
Yeah,
moments in Nightmare on Elm Street when the girls were laughing. Or like, that looks so fake and looks so
yeah.
cheesy. But I was like, you got to remember how little the budget was for these
Oh yeah,
movies,
yeah,
especially the original Friday the 13th, the original Nightmare, the original Halloween. Like they
yeah.
had no money.
Was it the original or the sequel, the one that had Johnny Depp where he got pulled into the bed?
The
Or was
first
that
one.
Kevin Bacon?
No, Kevin Bacon died in Friday the 13th, part one. Johnny
Yeah.
Depp dies
Okay.
in Nightmare on Elm Street, part one.
I remember they
And they
did that
pull him into
scene
the
where
bed.
the blood, just
Yes.
insane amounts of like
Yeah.
blood just
So they
squirted
built,
through the bed.
for that movie, they built a room on a rotating gimbal so that the camera could face into the bedroom, but they could flip it. And they did it for that scene where they would basically like flip it upside down so the bed was on the ceiling, and then just pour blood out of it so that it would fall onto the ceiling, right? And then they could flip the camera upside down so it looked like blood was shooting up and out and then attaching to the
Yeah.
ceiling in a pool,
Yeah.
right?
I imagine it was like a huge challenge trying to do those like practical effects. Like,
Well, so that some of the other ones that I love in that movie are the death of the blonde girl. They used the same bedroom. They just redecorated for her bedroom. And they, at one point, the boyfriend pulls the sheets back and she's flopping all around, and then wounds appear on her. And he's like, what's going on? And he tries to help her and he gets knocked back to the ground. Then what they do is they cut to this shot where the camera's over his shoulder, and you see her like fall against the wall and then like crawl up the side of the wall, and then boom, she's on the ceiling and the blood is coming off of her, but it's staying on the ceiling. And you're like, what is going on? The actor guy was attached to the wall, and they slowly rotated the room, but kept the cameras right behind him. So locked on him. And then the actress would climb the wall and climb the ceiling. So she was always on the floor. The actor was on the ceiling when they flipped it far enough. But the illusion on screen,
it was pretty cool. Like how they did that stuff back in the day. Like going to another one, the original American Werewolf movie.
Oh,
like that transformation scene.
Oh my god!
How they did that with like practical effects, like this. That was so crazy to like see that. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Actually see that transformation instead of it happening like off screen or something.
Right? Yeah. One of my favorites in Nightmare was the one where Nancy's like sleeping and the cross is on the wall behind her and it falls and she's like looking at it, and then all of a sudden Freddy's face pushes through the wall and then his hands, and he comes out over her, because they had built a rubber wall behind her that looked like a wall, but the second he pushed his face on it, it became rubbery, and then he could back away and it turns back into the wall again. So freaking
that was
cool,
so
man.
cool seeing that. Like,
they're
trying to figure out how they did it.
Simple cheap effects that are super creepy, so fun. Oh, The Howling. Yeah, good one, TJ.
Oh yeah, Howling was great.
Yeah.
Anyone seen The Comet? I don't think so, Tom.
I don't know. Is there a comet tonight? I don't know.
I don't know if he's talking about a movie or an actual comet.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the news, but maybe there was. I just didn't see it.
Yeah, Howling was great. That was, I want to say that was one of the first werewolf movies I saw. It was either that or American Werewolf was the first one.
I came really late to the American Werewolf thing. I think I probably saw like Abbott and Costello Meet the Wolfman. Knowing my dad, I probably saw one of those, or Wolfman Meets Frankenstein. One of those old black and white. I probably saw those. That was probably my first werewolf.
I went back early 2000s and rented like all like the original like monster movies, like the Bela Lugosi, Dracula, the old school Frankenstein, the Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I really like watching those.
They're so good.
Yeah.
One of the cool things I bought, I don't know where I got the disc from, but I think I rented it from Hollywood Video or Blockbuster or something. It was the original Dracula. And what I didn't know at the time was that they shot it and they shot the Spanish version almost simultaneously. And They used all of the same sets, different actors, and completely different filmmaking styles. And it's really cool to watch the Spanish version, flip the subtitles on or whatever. The photography is very different because the Spanish filmmakers were trying to get really abstract with these cool angles and lighting and stuff. I love the Bela Lugosi version. It's iconic. But to see it done with all the same sets, all the same productions, but like with a different language and a different crew, like it's really kind of cool.
It's pretty cool.
And then
I didn't know that.
The same thing kind of happened for Young Frankenstein, because Universal didn't throw out the sets for the original Frankenstein. They had them. And when Mel Brooks came along to make Young Frankenstein, he used the original sets that they had for Frankenstein. So he had all the original, sets that Boris Karloff and James Whale had used. Yeah. So that's why it looks so accurate to the original movies, because like the staircase and the laboratory, all of these things are the original pieces.
Man, that just kind of reminded me of another like old one. What was the name of it? I want to say it had Gene Wilder in it. I think it was called Haunted Honeymoon,
Haunted Honeymoon.
and it was
That I don't know that one, but I'll look up Gene Wilder for you if you want.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Gene Wilder, but that
TJ
was
might
like
know it before me.
a classic movie. I don't remember a lot about it. They were like actors doing like a radio show, but it was like being filmed.
Huh.
And then I think like some real like supernatural stuff started happening, or somebody got killed, or something crazy. But I'm pretty sure it was a Gene Wilder film.
Let's see, filmography. Haunted Honeymoon. You're right. 1986. Not only starring Gene Wilder and Gilda Radner and Dom DeLuise, also written and directed by Gene Wilder.
I like vaguely remember that one.
Dom DeLuise earned a Razzie Award for it.
Really?
But I mean, Gene Wilder and Gilda Radner together? Come on.
Yeah, I remember it looked pretty crazy.
There. Yeah. Jonathan Pryce is in it as well. Yeah, you said that, right?
I couldn't. Yeah, I know you mentioned Mel Brooks, and I couldn't remember if he was involved in it in any way or not.
It doesn't list him. It doesn't seem like he was involved.
That made me think of the movie when you said Mel Brooks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love Mel Brooks. I've seen him in person. So we try to. My dad, he's to the age when it's like he doesn't need anything for Father's Day or Christmas or for birthdays. So my brothers and I always and my sister, we always try to team up and get him something that is more of a memory that we can do together. And the best two that we've done were we found special screenings of some of his favorite movies, and then people who worked on the movie came out after to talk about it. So we did.
Oh, that's awesome.
We did Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and John Cleese came out. One of the one of the Monty Python guys, John Cleese, and he got interviewed by his daughter, and he told anecdotes, and he was hilarious. And then the better one though was we watched Blazing Saddles, and then Mel came out after and did stand-up comedy for like 10 minutes, and then sat down and did an interview. And this was probably 7 years ago, and he was just sharp as a tack, just like he was riffing. The interviewer was ready to give him a microphone and sit down and interview him. And Mel was like, no, I got 10 minutes of stand-up comedy in me. Let's just do it. And he just riffed for like 10 minutes on like the movie and on the way it was received and the challenges and trying to make this movie, because Blazing Saddles was written by him and Richard Pryor, the comedian. And Richard Pryor had a horrible drug problem, and the studio would not pay the insurance to have him star in the movie because they were worried about his drug addiction. And Richard was so self-aware. He was like, look, I need the money for my drug habit. So let's just put a different actor in the movie, and at least I get paid for writing it.
Yeah.
So they hired Cleavon Little to play the sheriff, and Richard Pryor could get his drugs. It's crazy.
Yeah. That just reminded me of another movie that Richard Pryor did with Gene Wilder called I think it was called See No Evil.
See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Yep.
Yeah. One was deaf and one was blind.
Exactly. Yeah. So funny.
The movies I probably shouldn't have been watching as a kid, but
he was in Silver Streak as well together.
Yeah.
The two of them were in Silver Streak. Very funny. They have just really good timing together, I think, those two.
Yeah, he was in Superman 3.
We're going to ignore that one, though.
I can do with Superman 3 more than I can The Quest for Peace.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Just because you get to see Superman get like evil and start taking shots.
Yeah. I remember the scene where they had like the evil version of Superman fighting Clark Kent in the dumpster.
The trash compactor.
Trash compactor.
The car smasher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a cool scene.
Brainiac, no. Richard Pryor, yes. Ryan. So good. But those were two of the best things I think we ever did with my dad, was we just saw that they were doing these screenings. We picked, thankfully, ones that were, the movies he loved. We could all just go to the movie and watch it with him, knowing that afterwards we'd get this great discussion.
Just like experience like you normally wouldn't, just something you won't forget.
Oh yeah. And you're in an audience too that is full of people that love that movie, and they're quoting it as it's playing. I mean, every single line from Blazing Saddles, they knew it, and they were all shouting it out. And even when Mel came out at the end, he's like, "You guys are the perfect audience for this movie." He's like, we were so worried we would never make another movie after this. This movie is so racist. This movie is so wrong. He's like, we were certain.
He definitely couldn't do Blazing Saddles today.
All the like jokes about being a black sheriff, and it's so over the line. But he's like, that's how we knew that we would get away with it, was because it was so far over the line. We were making fun of the line. Like it was like that's where it was at.
Was it 70s or 80s when that originally came out?
I think it was late 70s. Let's find out though. Gene Wilder, Blazing Saddles, 1974.
70.
Wow, the same year that Young Frankenstein came out. Both of them same year. And then they were nominated for a screenplay for writing Young Frankenstein. Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks. Such a talented guy, Gene Wilder, man.
Oh yeah.
So funny.
So many like I remember so many different movies with him.
Oh.
Like the Haunted Honeymoon, what was the one I mentioned earlier with Richard Pryor?
See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Silver Streak, Stir Crazy. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge original Willy Wonka fan. I mean, that movie is just so good. I've watched that movie almost every single year.
I never did watch the remake they did with Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
but the original I remember really liking.
Yeah, I mean, the music was great, and it's one of the only movies that Roald Dahl wrote for his own movies, like his own books. So the writer of the book, Roald Dahl, wrote the screenplay for the Gene Wilder version. And it's very true to his crazy book.
Yeah.
And then of course somebody else did the music for the songs, because there's like 4 or 5 songs in it. It's basically a musical.
There was a lot of the like older movies now I'm thinking of, like Little Shop of Horrors, where Steve Martin played like the insane dentist.
Glad you picked that one.
Yeah.
A year ago, Bearded Comic Bro and I wanted to do a show because we both love musicals. Like I grew up doing musical theater, and I like it. I think a really good musical is just as good as anything else. It's a really great genre. And it's not even a genre. It's more of a form, like a comic versus a book, right? And I think we both were like, let's just do a whole show on musicals. We ended up doing 2, I think. But it was a great excuse to force my daughters to watch a lot of musicals and stuff they'd never seen before. And the best movie that I came out, like there were so many that I thought I would love just based on my memory of the movie. But Little Shop was head and shoulders above so many of them, because it was like better than I remembered. It was that entertaining. And I flipped for it. I was like, this movie, the songs are all killer. The violence is so ridiculous and over the top. The performances are all so good. You mentioned Steve Martin, but obviously Moranis and the girl who plays his girlfriend, who apparently was a Broadway singer and played the part on Broadway.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And she's got that amazing New Jersey accent, so thick.
Yeah.
And
wasn't her, I can't remember her real name, but I think her name in the movie was Audrey.
Yes.
Or was that the plant?
Yeah. That's the plant and the girl. He names the plant after the girl. See, there's Bearded. He was here the whole time. One of the coolest things though that I found was my daughters loved the songs, and we started looking for YouTube videos using the songs, and we found a stage version where they had basically done a live recording of all those songs, and they brought in actors to re-sing the songs just for like an audience, for like entertainment, whatever. Jake Gyllenhaal played the Rick Moranis part,
Oh,
and they brought the original actress from the movie back to sing the Audrey part, and they were amazing together. Gyllenhaal, clearly a lot younger than her, but
yeah.
the two of them together, so good. Yes, and Tisha Campbell was one of the three ladies that are always singing like background, like downtown where the lights. The three ladies who are like always like shoopy dooping in the streets, so good. Like the Supremes, so good.
I didn't know they did that. I'm going to
Yeah,
have
so
to look
that
that
if
up
you
too.
search Jake Gyllenhaal Little Shop of Horrors, you'll find his version of the key romance song from the movie or from the musical. So good.
Been making
Wow, this
content for John and Ryan.
sounds about right. Making content for me? I don't remember. Are we doing something? Are you watching Guy Ritchie movies? Because we got to do that show coming up here, buddy. Got to watch your Guy Ritchie movies. We got homework.
I know. I just talked to Bearded a couple of weeks ago on the show, and we had a pretty cool conversation about Lost.
Oh, let's buckle up then.
Yeah,
Stretch. We just warmed. It took 2 hours to warm up. Now we're in the groove.
yeah. I know that like made me want to like go back and rewatch Lost again because it wasn't that long ago. Maybe less than a year ago, I rewatched the whole series, and
Did
talking
you?
about it again a couple of weeks ago made me want to watch it again. I
How
love
do
that
you
show, man.
feel? How do you feel about the show's ending and how it all wrapped up? What were your thoughts on it?
I had to watch it a couple times to really try to like understand it. But
Sure.
when it originally, I'm just glad they didn't just say they were all dead from the beginning or something
Right.
like that,
Right.
because I was so scared they were going to do something like that.
Yeah.
But it took me a while, a couple of rewatches, to really get used to the idea of the way it ended and just kind of
Sure.
understand it more.
Yeah.
But overall, I liked it. I mean, there was a few questions I wish they would have like answered better, or like some more plot points I wish they would have evolved into. And
Sure.
of course, we needed like a spin-off with Nikki and Paulo, I think. Those characters came out of nowhere. Such weird
But
episodes with that.
so one of the things that's been fun to do on my channel over the years has been like these television show deep dives, right?
Yeah.
I did Ted Lasso this summer. I did The Wire about a year and a half ago, and then before that, I did Lost. And one of the best things that come out of Lost was I met this guy named Luke, who's in our comic book community. He goes by Hydra Collectibles, and he is the biggest Lost fan that I know. He's the guy that will make replica Lost props himself.
Oh yeah.
So he made a ton of the like priestess, the Virgin Mary statues that had the drugs in them. He made like a whole fleet of these things. He made like you name it. The guy's just made a ton of like props. He'll study them in screen grabs from the show, and then he'll create his own ones. He'll make a mold and then print like multiples of them. Really great.
That's pretty cool.
He was the only one who could fully explain the polar bears in a way that I felt like I really grasped why the polar bears were there. And his breakdown on one of the episodes of that discussion around Lost, where he just got into the polar bear thing, I was like, this is the greatest learning experience, because I loved the show, and even I couldn't gather all the nuance of why polar bears were on the island. I thought it was phenomenal.
I'm about to check that out, man. Because
Yeah.
I like I really like hearing like different lore and stuff, videos on it.
So the short
Getting
version is,
perspectives I didn't think of.
yeah. And he got so into it, he was like every bit of minutia he was diving into. But the short answer for him was that like polar bears were there because they were training the polar bears how to move the island through space and time. So there's that big, what they call donkey wheel, right? Where when you turn it, the island skips, and it's buried under the island in this completely frozen section of the land. And what do we know is that when someone turns it, they disappear and they reappear in the Tunisian desert somewhere. And the first time that we're out there, we find a polar bear collar and a dead polar bear skeleton. The idea was the scientists knew that that's how you moved the island, and they were training the polar bears by, you hit this button, you get some food pellets, you hit that thing,
Yeah.
you get your water. They were training the polar bears to do things so that when they needed to move the island, they could send the polar bear down and it would turn the wheel and the polar bear would vanish and the island would vanish, but nobody needed to leave. They were using the polar bears to move the island. And that's why it was hard to find the island for so long. Then, of course, the Dharma Initiative imploded and the last few polar bears got loosed and were just like propagating on the main island. But that's why they had polar bears. It wasn't just like some stupid they've got polar bears and they never explained it. It's there. And you just got to like really get into the minutia and see it like for what it is. But like they didn't explain it. But I was like, that's cool. That's cool. If you dive deep into the thought process of it, it's there.
I know it seemed like they were going with the character of Walt. It seemed like they were going in like in a direction where like he could imagine something and it would be there. Because he had the comic with the bear in it, and then the bear showed up on the island. But then I guess they just kind of ended up like writing that off.
So recently, a writer published a book, not a novel, a true story about Hollywood producers run amok. And it was a lot about bad producers who had really toxic writer environments. And they call Lost out in a big way. And apparently the writer's room, which the writers worked in LA, but the show was shot in Hawaii. The writers were incredibly misogynistic and mildly racist would be the nice way to say it.
Really?
Yes. The Green Lantern Flash comic, which I have, and I don't have the Spanish version, but I have the.
That's right. It was Spanish in the
because it was Hugo's. It was Hurley's
picked
comic.
it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, the claim made by some of the writers who worked on the show was that as the show got popular, the writers got so stressed about keeping it popular that they started cutting back on the non-white characters' stories.
Wow.
And if you watch the show, Hurley is the only non-white character who gets any kind of plot or story beyond certain points. So like Walt, his dad, you get, what's her name? Ana Lucia, you get, what's his, Mr. Echo, all the non-white.
Echo was another character that I thought they were setting up for like something huge. And then all of a sudden they
because and if you talk to those actors, a lot of them were getting frustrated what was happening to their characters and they asked to leave the show, and they were frustrated because the producers kept the focus on the white characters. And so the theory is behind this, or at least the comment made by this book is that behind the scenes the writers were running a ship that was out of control. They couldn't control it. The studio wanted more and more and more, and they were working all night every night to try to finish the show and to make it work. And it just got a little derailed. I don't know where I got it, TJ. I don't know where I got it.
I just assumed with Walt. Yeah. I just assumed with Walt, they cut him because he had such a like growth spurt in between.
They had
seasons.
Some excuses where they said, the actor grew
I
too
didn't
fast.
Notice,
And with Echo, I know his public statement was he wanted to do movies instead. He ended up going and making the original Suicide Squad movie. Mr. Echo played Killer Croc.
I didn't know that.
And that was his claim that he went off to do that. But the truth, it sounds like the truth was they were very frustrated with the writers and the way they were handling the non-white characters.
That sucks.
It does suck.
Like they were setting him up for such an important role.
Yeah.
Like him like looking into the smoke monster and it like backing off.
The Asian actors too. Sun and Jin, the Korean characters, definitely got truncated and pushed to the side. Saeed, his character his story got kind of rushed and thrown out, and it ultimately ended up being the white people show. And now it doesn't ruin it for me, but it does make it a little sad that that's the toxic environment. Just found out a couple weeks ago that Walt was in a band. Yeah, but what do I care about that? So I did see some interviews later with Damon Lindelof where he apologized for the way that writer's room was run. And he said, I learned a lot from this. And I've tried to make sure that every writer's room since then was very different. And that he's like, I take full responsibility for how semi-toxic that writer's room was, but we were under a ton of pressure, and I didn't recognize how bad it was until I had left, until I was on my own, running my own shows, and I could see what it was, right? I could see what that was from the outside. And he's apparently said he's tried to make amends with some of the people that he feels like he burned.
Man, I would really, that kind of makes me want to like really wish they would do like some kind of like spin-off comic stories of what would have happened in those character storylines, because it seemed like they were setting up for such interesting stuff, man.
That's how
I remember really liking the Mr.
yeah.
Echo character.
That's how Fire Guy Ryan and I bonded as buddies, is that he learned I loved Lost, and then he started talking to me, and I told a couple of anecdotes about meeting some of the people who worked on Lost. And then he asked me the question, if you were going to make a Lost comic book, what would it be about? And I said it would fill in the gaps of the stories that we missed out on, like Walt and his dad. Like I would love a Michael and Walt comic where you get to understand what is Walt's superpower and why did they want him off the island, and what happened to Michael after he died. Did he come back to visit his son as a ghost? Like I want a story about that relationship.
Yeah, I just knew for sure they were about to do some kind of supernatural element, like where Walt was making things appear just by thinking about them.
So that's one of the first things Ryan and I bonded over. I disagree. I think he was poorly written and that his story arc was not finished well. I know a lot of people, the character.
Didn't like him for the I don't want to spoil anything for Beardy because I don't know if you've seen the whole series or not.
He has. It's his wife that's watching it for the first time.
Okay.
Oh, no, wait. You're right. Actually, he never finished. Wait, Greg, did you finish the show? Now I can't remember. I thought you finished it and your wife didn't. But let us know before we completely spoil that arc. What's up, John?
What's going on, John?
The League of Extraordinary Johns. I love it. Here, I thought it was the facial hair. I have seen it all multiple times. Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because I know a lot of people ended up hating the Michael character because of the whole thing with like Ana Lucia. And Libby. Sure. Yeah.
Yep. And I think what goes on with his son, and then how he kind of ends up sacrificing himself. I think some of that stuff didn't go over well, and it felt rushed and it felt truncated. And I think it could have been, more meaningful with given the right episodes built in around it. That's what it is. Okay, so Stacy hasn't seen past 3.
Hasn't seen past season 3.
Do you have a favorite season of the show, or can you break it up at all, or is it all just one big thing for you?
Originally, I keep like loving the first season just because it had so much mystery behind it, and just trying to like figure out what was the monster on the island, like what's going on, and then the stuff with the hatch and trying to get in it. And I remember like being so mad, like not going into the hatch at the end of the first season and having to wait and see. But I loved like the later seasons too, like after the character Ben finally came on the show.
Yeah.
And then like going back and rewatching the series like I did, I had forgotten that he wasn't there from the beginning.
Yeah.
It was like, seemed like I had to wait forever for the character Ben to finally show up.
I know.
The first season I think is still probably my favorite.
It's so good. I don't know if you know. So the actor who plays Ethan, he steals Claire, and they end up, Charlie shoots him, right? The actor's name is William McPeters, and he's Tom Cruise's cousin.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Tom Cruise's real name is Tom Cruise McPeters. And he just goes by his middle name. And they named his character Ethan though, because Ethan Hunt is Tom Cruise's character. So they both played famous Ethans, if you will.
Just go back to the first hour if you want to hear comic talk.
It also I was gonna say we talked horror movies for a ton of this.
And horror comics too, but
yep.
just finished season 2 last night.
Yeah. The girls and I have been kind of in the phase where we just kind of pick an episode. So like I rewatched one of my favorites is The Brig. And that's a season, I want to say season 3 episode. It's the one when Locke shows up at the camp with our heroes and he tells Sawyer, I need your help. I need you to kill Ben for me. And he talks Sawyer into following him to the Blackrock ship. And he's like telling him the whole way there, I've captured Ben. We need to kill him. I can't do it. I need you to do it. And Sawyer's got a gun. And he's like, okay, fine, but I'm not killing him. We're going to bring him back. And the whole flashbacks are connecting you to where was Locke on the island before we see him at the camp. So it's like you're seeing the last few days as time in the flashbacks is catching up with the present. Like it's like 2 stories played out, and you realize he doesn't have Ben. He has his own dad locked in the brig, right? Yep. And he's found out the truth that Sawyer's been the Sawyer that Sawyer's been looking for is his own dad, is locked.
The con artist, yeah.
Yeah. And you get that great scene when Ben says to Locke, like, you can't kill your dad, then you can't stay with us. Like, we're gonna leave a trail that you can follow, but unless you're carrying your dad's dead body, like, don't bother. And then at the end of the episode, you get like Sawyer kills him and Locke sends him away, and then Locke just throws his dad's body on his shoulder and carries him off. And the next episode begins with him marching into the camp and throws him down. He's like, you told me that if I carried my dad's body, I'd answer any questions I've got. So start at the beginning. Tell me everything. It's
that was such a cool episode.
Oh my God. I love The Brig. It's a super
the whole like episode. Story with Locke ended up being one of my favorite arcs.
Oh,
like I was so upset when they like off this character.
Yeah.
And they didn't really bring him back, and they had the whole reveal that it was the smoke monster. Yeah.
No, the tragedy of the John Locke character, I think, is ultimately built around the bigger picture of man of science, man of faith.
Because for a while I thought like Locke would be the one that ended up like taking over the island.
And I think his faith was so limitless, but John never had his feet on the ground. And I think he needed somebody like Jack, who always had his feet on the ground and never had faith. And his death gives Jack just enough faith to be able to do the mission he was meant for. You know, I get that, TJ. A lot of people bailed out somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I know. I got my niece into the TV show Lost, and she was in love with Charlie.
Oh,
and she was so mad.
But what a great ending to I mean, talk about a character who had a beautiful end, right? Yeah. I mean, not Penny's boat and sacrificing himself. And that episode, which I think is called Top 10 or something like that, is where he greatest hits, where he's counting down the greatest moments in his life, right?
That I'm not gonna lie, man. That episode brought some tears.
Oh, absolutely better. It absolutely better. And it made up for some really bad Charlie episodes, because my least favorite episode the show ever did is Fire and Water. And that's a season 3 episode when Charlie is like not sure if he's high on drugs or if he's seeing the Virgin Mary everywhere, and he decides to try to baptize Claire's baby, and he's taking her away. And it ends with
all the like fever dreams and stuff.
Oh my God, it ends with Locke beating him senseless at the beach. And I'm like, this episode is horrible.
That was rough.
It's a bad, but then they redeem it, I think, with this phenomenal greatest hits episode. We don't like Lost Charlie. We are a big fan of John's comics Charlie. Okay, she's a better Charlie. I'm just gonna say. But you know this, right? My daughters are both named after Lost characters, Kate and Charlie.
Oh, I didn't know you actually named them after the characters.
And then Charlie is actually a Charlotte, which is the 3rd Lost character.
Oh yeah, Charlotte Lewis. Yeah,
it gets better because my younger brother has Penny and Jack.
That's awesome, man.
So,
hey, if I ever have a son, I'm gonna name him Clark Kent. That's all there is to it.
Oh, so good. Was Fire and Water? Fire and Water was in season 2. Okay, that is my least. I mean, there's a bunch of episodes I don't like, but that one's my least favorite. It's just an absolute waste of an hour, and I'm happy to skip it every time. Although I do love seeing Locke beat the snot out of him at the very end. It doesn't work for either character. It's way out of Locke's character to beat the snot out of him like that.
Yeah,
and
that episode had me thinking, how are they going to like redeem the Charlie character after that?
No,
like
it took a whole year because apparently it took a whole year to get to greatest hits when he would commit, to diving down.
The whole
what's going to happen.
The Not Penny's boat thing on his hand.
No.
Yeah.
Do you have a single favorite episode where it's like, this is the episode for me?
Oh man, that's hard.
I'll tell you mine.
There's so many like standouts.
Mine is always, I think, going to be the Walkabout. John Locke's first flashback where you learned that he was in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
I freaking love that. I get super emotional when the reveal happens at the end and he's looking at the wheelchair and you're just like, oh my God. And the episode begins with that, like, he's had the like the orange peel in his mouth, doing the creepy smile, looking at Kate when she's putting on the dead body's shoes. And oh my God.
That was such a weird moment.
So creepy. He was so creepy in the first few episodes. And then you get the fourth.
Yeah, like you didn't know if he was going to be like the stepfather character.
Oh man.
Or where he was going with that.
And then he's got the box full of knives and he's hunting wild boar and all the close-ups of his foot laying down and the bottom of his shoe. Oh my God. So good. So do you have one that jumps to mind for you? If
we're going like favorite with specific characters, like the one where it finally revealed the one where I can't remember the episode name, but the one where they finally revealed how Locke got paralyzed because his father pushed him out of the window.
Yeah,
that was a great episode as far as like Locke episodes.
Oh yeah, he's got a lot of good episodes. I felt like his episodes were genuinely. Him and Sawyer had some of the best ones for me, where I was like the long con. Some really great episodes that I felt like when I saw on the TV Guide schedule or whatever, the TiVo schedule, that it was a Locke or a Sawyer focused episode. I was always like, oh, buckle up. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Sawyer had some great episodes too, man.
Oh, yeah. The long con is also one of my all time favorites. That's the one when he decides, I'm back with the group now, after the whole raft incident and everybody took all the stuff from me. Everybody took all my gear and I'm going to be the bad guy again. It's not far after Fire and Water because everybody hates Locke for beating up on Charlie right now. And he talks Charlie into trying to kidnap Sun so that everybody thinks the others are back and the others are here. And then he uses it as a way to con them into getting all the guns. And then he ends up stealing all the guns from the entire camp. So good. Hasn't happened yet on the rewatch, so I think it's season 3 where Locke gets pushed out. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was season 3 when they finally did
3 or 4, because it was pretty late when they finally explained that it was not the kidney dialysis thing that was giving him his problems. It was later that we learned that he was, serious vertebrae problems from that fall.
Yeah. But another great Sawyer episode was the early season 1 episode where they thought he had like Shannon's inhaler.
Yeah.
And they like Saeed and Jack tied him to the tree and they were
Saeed tortures him. Yeah. It's actually, I think it's a Saeed episode.
A knife through his arm.
Yeah. It's a Saeed episode where you learn that Saeed was an interrogator.
A torturer. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so freaky. They're doing the bamboo shoots up his fingernails and
man.
God. And
that was a crazy episode.
And he does it all to get a kiss from Kate, where he's like, all you gotta do is give me a kiss and I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And he's like, I never freaking had the inhaler.
I had a crush on Evangeline Lilly back then, but I'm not letting anybody like stick bamboo up my fingernail.
Yeah.
It's like I'll just I'm good.
So good. So good. Who doesn't have a crush on Evie though? Come on.
Oh, I know.
She's awesome.
It's crazy, like going back, like Smallville was one of my favorite shows back in the day.
Oh yeah, me too.
And I rewatched that several years ago after watching Lost, and I I saw an episode with Evangeline Lilly. Like when I originally watched Smallville, I didn't know who that was.
I didn't know. I mean,
But when I
admittedly,
rewatched I
there's
want
what,
to say it was the early
is it
season
9
one
seasons?
episode.
How many
Yeah, but
seasons of
this was an
Smallville?
early season one episode, and she just had a non-speaking role where she
Okay.
walked up, did a shot, made out with this dude, and walked away. and and when I was rewatching the show a couple years ago, I was like, "Oh my God, that's Kate from Lost."
I love it. That's great. The girls and I watched season 1 of Smallville together, but we never got too far back into it. My wife and I probably watched. I mean, probably is it 9 seasons of Smallville? Is that what it is?
10, I think. Yeah.
We
10,
watched.
yeah.
We stopped before they went to Metropolis. That I know. So we never met
I think
Lois Lane.
I think that was season 4 when they introduced Lois in Metropolis.
Okay. So somewhere in there we stopped. I didn't really want to see him go to Metropolis. I wanted it to stay in Smallville. That's what I wanted. And I love all the Lex Luthor stuff.
Yeah, I think originally the plan was to end it after 5 seasons.
Okay.
But it was still doing really well, and so they just kept renewing it, and it ended up going 10.
Huh.
But it kind of lost me after season 7 when Michael Rosenbaum left.
Oh, sure.
Because I really loved his portrayal of Lex Luthor.
He was phenomenal. He was a huge part of that show.
And the show just wasn't the same after he left.
Bearded's gonna try to meet Evangeline Lilly at a comic convention somewhere soon.
That's awesome.
So he's rewatching it so that his wife is ready to like shoot content around meeting Evie.
Yeah, that's cool. I know. I found out from Bearded Comic Bro when we did our chat a couple weeks ago that McFarlane actually made Lost figures.
So I got one. If you want me to go get it.
Yeah, I'm like already watching them all on eBay, trying to find good prices because I'm definitely planning on getting those in the very near future.
I think I've got one of them. If you want me to go grab it, I can grab it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. See if you can read the chat for a sec.
But yeah, I'm like watching the whole set on eBay right now and just waiting on like trying to find cheaper prices for them because I'm definitely going to get those figures. I did not know they existed until Bearded told me about them. Love noticing Lost actors now in old movies before Lost. Yeah. I do it all the time. Like I'll go back and I'll rewatch an older movie or an older show and I'll see a character from Lost.
I haven't moved it off of the shelf in a long while.
Bearded said he's going to outbid me on all those figures.
Oh, is he? So this is a statue piece and it comes... There's John.
Oh yeah, that's one of the ones I'm watching on eBay.
It comes with the hatch, right? He's standing and looking down on the hatch. He's got a water bottle and a knife and a compass. It totally looks like Terry Quinn. So this is the only one I've got, and I want to say this came from the Comic Books NYC Kavi. He sent my first AOK I ever got. He sent a box that could have held like a college fridge. Like it was enormous. And it had, I think, my second slab I ever got. And it had a Batgirl statue for the girls and a ton of books, of course, and this guy.
That's awesome.
So cool. Absolutely fantastic. Just a really great statue. Just so cool. So there you go.
I love that the likenesses are so good on them too, man.
Yeah. I mean, it just looks like Terry Quinn.
The ones I've been watching on eBay are anywhere from like $25 to $40.
So it doesn't move. There's no articulation.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's different than the ones you were looking at.
No, those were the ones I was looking at.
They are? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's cool. They come with like the Hurley figure comes with like a replica of the lottery ticket with the numbers, the 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42.
I love it.
Yeah. And Jack's figure comes with a replica mugshot with Kate.
Oh, really? He's got the like paper with her mugshot?
Yeah, the actual size. Weird. And Locke's figure box comes with the walkabout pamphlet.
So here, Bearded sent me his. Oh, sorry. Am I supposed to give? Sorry, am I supposed to share this, Greg? Sorry, you made it sound like I couldn't share it. But he's got one of the figures. It's got sound clips. So I took mine out of the box.
Yeah.
I will say I am not a keep your toy in the box kind of
Oh
guy.
yeah, I'm definitely an out of box guy with most of my figures.
Yeah, all my action figures, I don't keep them. A couple of my pop
I've
pop
got
figures I've taken out of the box. But
probably can't see them, but I
it.
got a ton of open box figures, McFarlane, Legends.
So if you send me an action figure as like a gift, I appreciate it, but I will open it because I want to play with my toys. So he's got
very few stuff I keep in box.
He's got the Kate action figure.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it comes with a little toy plane, her little like the silver airplane. You know, the one that's like in the bank that she's.
I love how they come with like that stuff, man.
It's so cool.
But in the very near future, probably within the next couple months, I'll be doing an unboxing video of those figures, hopefully.
Oh, you can try to get all of them together?
Yeah.
There's like
at least the first, because they came out with the second series that had I think Sun and Sawyer didn't come out until the second series, and Mr. Echo has one.
Nice.
The first series I think just has Jack, Kate, Charlie, I want to say Shannon, where she's just like in a bikini.
Yeah, it's
just on the beach. Yeah.
I love it. And of course Locke.
Yeah, Locke.
He was in the
first round. Hurley has a figure in the first set.
Yeah, so this guy he just sits up on the shelf. I don't actually like take him down very often. I should, when I redo the man corner, and put some shelves in, I should make a statue or a toy figure section. I don't really have statues. I've got action figures, and then this is probably the only statue that I've got.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
What's up, Matrix?
Most of my figures move. They have.
Yeah.
They have
I like the statue kind of because he's in the pose from the show with the hatch. It's like iconic, more iconic, I think.
Totally. Sun and Shannon are both in bikinis. Classic McFarlane.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that.
I think the Sun's is the one where she's like on the beach and she's holding up the towel and it's like flowing behind her. Yeah.
What about Kate? Like the classic shot of her in the water. Come on.
There should, man. Somebody send this to McFarlane and get on those and make a new wave, man.
Yeah, right. The new set, because everybody's clamoring for more Lost figures.
Absolutely. I think they would sell if they brought that back.
I mean,
I know I would definitely be
right.
You
and me and Greg are in there buying these.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, most of what I have moved. So like I got Lego and I got action figures. This is the only one that's a statue, I think it's
I don't think they did one of Ben. I wish they had, but I don't remember seeing one of Ben.
Yeah, what you do is you put him on the submarine, right? Standing on a part of the submarine.
That would be cool. Yeah. Somebody tweet that or X that idea to McFarlane.
Make it happen. Let's do it.
Do a whole resurgence.
It is a show that I feel, anybody who was frustrated with the show at some point, like maybe Stacy, it's a show that I think would have been bigger in the binge watch streaming era. And I think it's a show that benefits from rewatching on that level. So watching it with the girls, a bad episode like Fire and Water, you watch it, it's 45 minutes or whatever, and then you can play the next episode and forget all about it. And it's like you move on faster from the mistakes. Now you don't get the great water cooler talk, which I think was part of what made Lost a hit. Was something would happen and you'd go to work the next day and you talk to people, or you'd go to class next day and talk to people. And it was like, everybody was talking about what Sawyer did last night. And it would be stewing in your mind for a full week until the next episode. And you'd watch it live with your friends over at your house, I threw legit Lost parties, like friends over at the house. Nobody can talk. Shut the heck up. John's taking notes. Like it was like a deal.
Like I remember back in the day, there was a YouTuber that did recap shows of every episode.
I wish I had.
And they would do
that.
They would do it as cosplaying as a different character each
That's
time, and they had
funny.
like these elaborate sets behind them.
Oh wow.
And you can't find those videos anymore. Like they took
Well,
all their videos
he
off for
probably
some
closed his
reason.
channel down and then it's
Yeah,
gone, you know.
but
I did
it was
I
so
had a
fun watching that and like hearing the theories.
oh yeah. I had a weekly newsletter email that I sent. And I had to get on the list, you just had to tell me you wanted to hear it. And it would be all of my thoughts about last night's episode, all my questions and ideas and things. And then I started a blog towards the end of the show where I was doing like content pumping out, to make, just to write
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
I was
There was
way,
nothing like watching it for the first time and just
oh
trying to
yeah.
figure out the mysteries and like
Oh my
what
gosh.
was
So
happening,
good.
like throwing so many theories back and forth.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Loved it.
Especially when it got like to the stuff where like Ben was taking Lot to see Jacob, and then it was just like the empty chair in the cabin,
The
and
crazy cabin
yeah,
noises. And then, yeah. Yeah. So good.
it was so fun just theorizing about it because I remember back then YouTube had like its own like chat groups,
Yeah.
and I was in one I was in one for Lost, and it just
Oh,
had different YouTube friends that would make like different Lost videos and stuff.
oh. See,
Like,
I was not clearly
yeah,
into YouTube at that time. So I was definitely just doing it on my own. And I had friends that would chime in and we'd do these email chains where everybody would reply all. And it was like, talk about it. But like, I wish I'd found a larger community to tap into. Oh, have you done any of the We Have to Go Back concert series?
no,
I should have grabbed my brochure, but one of the best like anniversary gifts my wife gave me was tickets to go see a concert of the music from Lost and an outdoor
oh wow,
setting with the wind and the trees blowing around you. And it was Michael Giacchino, the composer for all the music, now Academy Award winner Michael Giacchino, conducting the orchestra. And there was a screen playing scenes from the show in the background. And then the producers and writers and actors would come in and out and talk in between songs. And they do them now every year, and they do them in different cities. They'll
oh
travel
wow, I didn't
around
know
and
that.
do them. So if you search on YouTube or Google, We Have to Go Back concerts. It's an annual event, and they obviously do them in Los Angeles is where we went to see it. But I've heard them in a lot of other cities where they move around and do them. And you can
That's
watch
awesome.
clips and stuff. They get different people to attend every year. So we saw Sawyer, we saw Bernard and Rose, we saw the writer, producer, Carlton Cuse, who is the guy who says previously on Lost. Like
Oh, that's cool.
he's the voice of that, but he's
Yeah.
also like the head writer on the show. And a few others. And of course, the star is Michael Giacchino, because it's one of the only shows that I know of that had a full orchestra for every single episode, recording in a full amphitheater every single week for the show. They had an entire orchestra.
I'm gonna
Most
definitely have
shows
to look that up.
it's all synthetic and it's all fake and there's not a ton of real musicians. And Michael Giacchino now, of course, Academy Award winner for Up, and he does almost all the new Star Wars, and he is the Disney guy when it comes to composing. Yeah. So he does all the Marvel movies and all the Pixar movies, and absolutely iconic composer. You could argue he's the new John Williams, but that's pretty high praise. He did Star Trek, the new Star Trek films, all the great music for those. And so he's there. He's the star. He's got the orchestra. He's conducting. He's talking about this musical piece or this character and that why this song does this for this character. It's really cool.
That's awesome, man. It's cool that they still like do stuff like that with the show.
And so next year will probably be a big one because I think next year's and Beard, did you correct me? Is it like the 25th anniversary? It seems like too big. No, it's got to be less. 2023. It's got to be the 20th anniversary. It's probably the 20th anniversary next year of the premiere.
Was it 2002, 2003?
So I think we're nearing or right on to the 20th anniversary. So I'm sure it'll be a big one. I think we went to the 5th anniversary one. Or no, it was the 5th anniversary after the finale. So it would have been the 10th, 11th anniversary. It was really cool.
It really don't seem like the show's been like that old now, man. Like,
right?
That makes me feel older. Like, hey, 20 years. It's been 20 years.
It's been a hot minute since the
And
premiere.
like,
Obviously not
I
since
still
the
remember the
finale.
numbers.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. And you've heard the story of how I met. It's the 19th. This is the 19th. So yeah, next year is the 20th. You heard the story about how I met the creator Damon Lindelof, right? Have you heard that story?
I think I've heard you mention that on the channel.
Yeah, because I may have scared him, but his wife was so nice. I think she forced him to send me the entire box set of Blu-ray discs for Lost.
Oh, that's awesome.
As a gift. And he did it. Like, he found me through Twitter later after we met, and he sent me this thing. So kind. So I have it looks like a temple, and the pieces come off, and there's like a black light, there's like maps and stuff in it, and it's got all the seasons of the show. But he was really nice. His wife was really nice too. They had their son, who's the same age as Kate, and they were playing on the playground together. And I didn't know it was him. I was just tired because we had a new baby at home, and I was like, I'm just exhausted. And then he comes down, and I'm wearing a Lost themed T-shirt. It's the handicap logo, but the guy's getting out of the wheelchair and running, and it says, "Don't tell me what I can't do." So he comes over on the playground, and I'm bleary-eyed. I didn't even recognize him. And the kids were playing, and I was laughing and whatever. And then he comes over, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Damon." And I'm like, "I know who you are." I'm like, "Look at my shirt. I know exactly who you are." But then I ended up talking to his wife because she was looking at schools for their son. And I was a teacher in town. So they were on vacation now that Lost had officially ended. It was the summer after the finale. And they were like, finally a family vacation for the first time in who knows how long. And they went to Laguna Beach, California to get away. And so we were just talking about schools and all that kind of stuff. And she's into politics. So most of what she does is like, fundraising and getting the word out, and political stuff, and women's rights and a lot of that kind of stuff. And so she was just interested in the schools in the area, and how, do they have good programs, or the schools, getting funds, they're doing good stuff. It was cool. She's a very savvy lady.
That's awesome, man.
They went to get away from Lost, and they found John. Then they can't ever get away.
Yeah, just be like, "Hey, man, come back to my place. I want to show you my collection."
Well, it's funny because Kate probably spent more time with him than I did. Kate and his son were playing with him the whole time, and I was talking to his wife the whole time. It was very entertaining.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. I tried not to be a freak and be like, "I just love the show," but it'd
have to be hard not to go full fanboy sometimes.
Well, and I know that he was probably getting a lot of like noise around people not liking how the show ended at that point, because it was still very fresh after the show ended. And I just was wanting to thank him. I was like, "I loved the show. I thought you ended it really well. I just thank you for the hard work. It was just really enjoyable." So I gushed a little bit, and then went over and talked to his wife about schools. And then I don't have Twitter. I never had Twitter, but he was big on Twitter, and he started tweeting things like, "John Jameson from Laguna Beach, are you on Twitter?" And like, when you've got 2 million followers, people are like, "Oh yeah, I'm John Jameson. Yeah, I'm John." Yeah. My older brother loved Twitter. He was on it, and he was like, "Dude, you got to get on Twitter. Damon Lindelof's looking for you." And I was like, "He's looking for me? Like what?" So I made a Twitter.
Should I be happy or scared? Yeah. What did I do?
There's a warrant out for me.
Yeah.
So I made a Twitter account just to reply to him, and be like, "Yeah, sorry, I was such a nerd and whatever." And he's like, "No, my wife really enjoyed the conversation, and I want to send you a box set. If you're okay giving me your address, I want to send this to you." And he's like, "Do you want DVDs or Blu-rays, whatever you want? I'll hook you up."
That's awesome, man.
I was like, "Yes, please, thank you."
I didn't even know they did like a Blu-ray set. I remember having the original like DVDs each season.
Yeah. So when the finale, when the box set came out of all the seasons, that was Blu-ray was really hitting at that point.
Yeah.
So they made that. He didn't sign it or send a letter, Lasso. But I didn't need it. Like, it was just cool that he took the time to send one. You know, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
John's
It'd be
lack
like,
of social media.
could you get Evangeline Lilly to deliver it, please?
Well, I think if I ever went to a comic convention and Lindelof was there, because I mean he did the Watchmen TV show. He's a comic book nerd. He loves comics. I would probably bring the box and just have him sign it and be like, because I can collapse it down and bring it along and be like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but our kids played together and you sent me this. He's like, oh yeah, I'll just have him sign it and do it then.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Maybe get all the actors to sign it if I were, but I've never been to a con where any of them were there. So I usually go to cons.
I imagine they would go to like
San Diego,
maybe New York or San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, it's the 20th anniversary. Maybe they'll do something next year. But I tend to go to cons where it's all about comics, and so they're not focused on the celebrities. I've only been to San Diego one time, considering I live like an hour away from San Diego. It's shocking that all my life I've only been one time.
I would love to like go to that at least once, because there's a few
felt
like
obligated.
I would love to like meet somebody like Tom Welling or Michael Rosenbaum.
Sure.
From Smallville. That would be cool to meet them and get autographs. Oh, and like they're never going to come to Charlotte at Heroes Con.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like I felt like I should go at least once in my life. I can't claim to be a comic nerd living an hour from San Diego and then never go. Part of the reason though I didn't go is because I don't like crowds. Like I don't like. I get a little anxious.
Same,
and so for me,
big crowds. Not for me.
So I like smaller cons, that aren't that, and I don't want the media circus. I don't want to spend my time at a con listening to a panel of actors. Like that's not what I go for. I want to look at the books and I want to talk to the artists and the writers of books. And I want to, if there's a panel of great artists and writers, I'll hear them. So the movie, was like one TV of the things, stuff. Yeah.
That was one of the things I loved about finally going to HeroCon here in Charlotte last June. Even though it was like there was like a ton of people there.
Yeah.
It was big and spaced out. You had plenty of room to walk around, look through boxes.
It makes such a
difference.
And
it's like it was such a good con for like collecting books, because they had like everything from Golden Age to modern. I've never seen that much Golden and Silver Age in one spot.
Yeah.
And that was like,
looks like Greg is saying
I thought like I was so scared it was going to set my anxiety off.
Yeah.
But there was so much room to walk around. You never felt crowded, even though there was a bunch of people there.
I was borderline feeling that at MegaCon Orlando this year. Like it was right there, because there were a couple of days where you couldn't walk around. Like it was that packed. But I had made the intention of going to that con with the attitude of I don't need to spend every day all day on the floor. So there were the busiest days. I tried to go really late and do other stuff in the morning and then go over, so that I didn't feel so locked into the crowd,
Yeah.
And it was good because the last day, Sunday at that con, I was able to get a ton of sketches on a sketch cover. I was going around and like getting remarks from David Nakayama and Jay Lee and all these really great people they had done all their remarks. They had done all their covers. So they were at their booths kind of just finishing stuff up. And I could pay and then drop off my book and, say, hey, can you draw me a Batman villain on this, and just leave it.
I know that's a goal of mine next year. Like, cause I didn't like last June, I didn't like bring any books to get signed. I didn't like stand in line to meet any creators. So next June, it's a goal of mine to hopefully get a few autographs and bring some books and stuff.
What I did that I thought was cool, and I got another one this year, was I purchased a couple of blank sketch covers, and then I used them for remarks. Instead of one person doing an elaborate sketch for Batman Black and White, I have a sketch cover, and I was just having people do their favorite Batman villains. So that cool. I ended up with like a fun rogues gallery that I can then continue to go to other cons and add more. I think I've got 4 people drawn on it so far.
That's an awesome idea, man, to do
Yeah.
for a sketch cover.
And
Just do
the other one I
remarks.
got, the other one I got this year was Teen Titans, a Teen Titans blank. And I was like, oh, this will be fun. I could get people to draw Teen Titans characters, villains, whatever, Deathstroke over here, and Nightwing over here. I could get a fun thing going for that. Same idea. So I think it was a fun way to have a conversation with artists that I might be too nervous to talk to, but then be like, I'm paying for something kind of cool that's going to be unique. David Nakayama did a really cool Joker. Jay Lee did Poison Ivy, really cool Poison Ivy. The best one was this Catwoman by Simone Bianchi. No, not Simone Bianchi. I forgot now. But really cool. They came out really cool. And there's a lot of room to be able to do a cool Two-Face or a Clayface or, Riddler or whatever.
Yeah.
And just keep the only instructions I gave were pick a villain not on here that you want to draw. Like any villain that you want to draw from the Batman Rogues gallery, you just pick them. So they were free to kind of like be doing the one they wanted to do,
That's such a cool idea, man, for sketch covers.
And then I never knew who I
Blanks.
was going to get. Like I didn't know Jay Lee would do Poison Ivy. I just said, yeah, go crazy. And then I came to pick it up and it was this great Poison Ivy with like the leaves in her hair and all cool looking.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping Dan Jurgens comes to HeroCon next year, because that's one that I would really love to meet, just because it's got like so much nostalgia.
Oh my God.
Because
Yeah.
his was like the first books that I started reading.
That's
So I would
Superman
love
alone.
to
I mean, yeah.
love to get a chance to meet to, like, there's several books that I would love for him to sign.
Didn't he was one of the creators for Booster Gold, right? Because I think I have a signed Booster Gold #1 from him.
I've got a Booster Gold #1. That would be a cool book to take and get signed if he
I
he
love
came to
that
Charlotte.
character. And
Booster Gold is such a. It seems
so
like I think you might be the only other person. You and JPL might be the only people other than me that like Booster Gold. I never hear anybody say they like Booster Gold.
I do know that Tony Sanders and I are big, because we both got our copies of Booster Gold at the same time, and he was pissed mine had a signature on it. I was like, I already got the signature. But he's one of those characters I think could be, and he can be annoying with the wrong writer.
Yeah.
And also very funny and charming with the right writer. And I think I still to this day wish, like say 15 years ago, they had done a Blue Beetle Booster Gold movie with Luke and Owen Wilson, because I think those guys would have been phenomenal. Luke Wilson as Booster sold. Like, give me more of that. And then Owen Wilson, his brother, as Blue Beetle, I think would be hilarious.
That would be.
I wanted that. Cool. I wanted that so bad. Now they're, of course, a little too old to probably pull it off, but I love the idea of those two guys. You need people with good comedic timing and chemistry together for that kind of thing.
That would have definitely been an interesting pair for that movie, I think.
Sign me up. Take my money now.
But yeah, it was actually JPL Flash James that sent me that AOK'd me my Booster Gold #1.
Nice.
That was awesome.
That's fantastic. That's great. That also adds a little love to the book too. Now you're like, I care about it even more.
Yeah.
Never want to get rid of that, because it's going to remind me of that person too.
And I got that in a top loader over in the CGC box, because it wouldn't fit in the regular short box.
Nice. I had mine in a similar box because I was in a CBCS, because I was thinking of getting some signature verifications on a few books, and that was one of the ones. That, and I have a Jack Kirby signature that I was like, nice. I wonder if that's really Jack Kirby's. I don't know, because his wife was rumored to sign a lot of books for him towards the end.
I know. I've got a few books I've thought about sending in to CBCS to get because I found them. I found a couple George Perez signatures in a $1 box.
Ooh.
So I've been thinking about sending those in to get them verified.
Yeah. I wish I had gotten to meet him. I've been lucky enough to meet Marv Wolfman a bunch. And he is one of the greatest people I've met in this comic, like professional comic people. He's the guy that never asked money. Every time I've gotten books signed from him, he'll just put out a jar for the Hero Initiative to help other people. And he's like, I make enough money coming to these things. I don't need the $5 or the $10 per
Yeah.
signature, unless you're getting a stack this big and they're all getting to CGC.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, no, I would always bring just 2 books, talk to him for a little bit when there was no line and he was just chilling. I dropped my $20 into the thing for the Hero Initiative, and he just wants to chill. And he's always wearing his Nightwing gear, and he lives. I guess he has 2 houses, but one of them is near my LCS, and he'll do signings at my LCS from time to time.
Oh, that's cool.
He'll sign all the Teen Titans trade paperbacks in the place, and then my LCS owner is the coolest dude. He just puts them on the shelf. So you pay cover price. You just buy the trade.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, you buy the volume 1 Teen Titans, and you happen to open it up, and there's Marv Wolfman's signature on the inside cover.
That's cool.
So I've got I think 4 trades all signed by Marv, just because I found them on the shelf and I would just buy them off the shelf.
I don't think I have any Wolfman signatures. I've got I bought a set of the Reign of Superman set from Matt, the boy who had 7.
Yeah.
That had several books in it that had Dan Jurgens signatures on it. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
But I've never actually got to meet any of the creators or writers. So
I mean, Marv, I would highly recommend Marv. He usually doesn't have a massive line because people usually want to meet the artist, not necessarily the writer. And he just loves comics and comic people and those characters and those stories. And, he's written so many of my favorite DC characters. And I was just so pumped. Every time I meet him, I'm so pumped to chat. He's just so nice.
That's awesome. It's always cool when you meet them and they're cool people. They're just because I've heard stories about George Perez, how awesome he was. Yeah. He would have been such a cool person to meet, I think.
Totally. Yeah. And those are the people that you tend to want to go back and get other stuff from them, because David Mack is an example of that. If I go to a con and David Mack is there, I will go to his table and buy something just because it's freaking David Mack. And he is anytime I post things on social media, he comments, he says, thank you. He'll private message you and say, thank you for posting that or sharing that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I got a remarked, I think it's in the box right over here, but I got a remarked hardcover of his issues from Daredevil. And he's like, yeah, if you just buy it and pay the sign fee, I'll remark it for you too. So he drew a Daredevil, he signed it, and it was all I had to do was buy the hardcover and pay the signature cost. He just did it right there. And he was just so cool about it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I don't think I have any remarks in my collection, but I've got several pretty cool signatures.
It's it's the whole Echo character, the creation of Echo.
Such a beautiful cover, man.
And then he did a little Daredevil on the inside and signed it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I love these issues. I have pretty much all of them. And I just love his art is so phenomenal, and he's just the coolest guy. He's the nicest guy. In fact, I've got right behind me is his Wonder Woman poster.
Oh, nice.
Let's get a little closer to her.
Magic Lasso probably loves that.
He does. Whoa, sorry, don't mean to make anybody drunk. There's Wonder Woman by David Mack, and it's signed. He signed it too, in red pen. You got to get a little closer to see that. Sorry. So I got that one at San Diego. When I finally went to San Diego, I stopped by his booth, and then I got a Tom Taylor signed Nightwing poster. I did.
That's
Ryan,
cool.
I did. He's still here.
I know. I've got a Batman Tom Taylor signed book that Simple Simon sent me from Australia when he met him, and it was cool because he had it personalized to Super Russ 9000.
Oh, that's even cooler.
So that was my very first signature that I've had personalized. That was awesome.
Yeah. So I went to San Diego not planning to buy anything, and I bumped into David Mack's booth, of course, and I had to buy stuff. So I bought that trade. He remarked it, and I bought that poster, and he signed it. And then I was just wandering around, and I saw all this cool Nightwing stuff, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I've been loving this Nightwing run." And it said Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo, the creative team, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" And there was a guy standing there, and I was like, "Oh, I love this run." He's like, "Oh, yeah." And then I was talking to him about it, and then I thought, oh, the guys are probably doing an interview right now because there's just this one guy here. And then I looked at his name badge and it said Tom Taylor. And I was like, oh shit, you're Tom Taylor. And he goes, yeah, I am. I was like such an ass. And then he's like, did you want to buy anything? I was like, so I bought the issue 1 poster and it had already been signed by Bruno. So he just added his own signature to it.
That's
like
cool.
such an idiot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple of years ago, I didn't like know anybody, like, because I mean, growing up, I didn't pay attention to who the writers or
Well, how
artists
often
was
do you see
really.
their
It was
faces,
just the
right?
books and characters. Yeah. It wasn't until I got a little older that I started like looking, like Dan Jurgens did this book, or George Perez did this book, or this is a Neil Adams.
Yeah.
And there's still like a lot of the newer writers and artists I don't really know because I don't follow too many new books.
Yeah. There's only a few that I really follow because I mean, like, so I did get this out, so I'm going to show it now.
Like I'm lucky enough to have a Kurt Swan signature on a book that I won. I won in a giveaway contest from Silverhead Bronze Age Babe a few years ago.
Score.
And that was awesome, man. Because at the time I was really getting into Silver Age Superman.
Oh yeah. So this is a Bruno Redondo original art piece.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nightwing. And it's hard to call it original art because he is a digital artist, but he makes a single mono print of each page and then he signs them. And this is the final page of issue 95 when Nightwing gets knocked down and his mask falls off and you can see like the mask all by itself. So the bad guy finds out his identity. So I went through his cellar. I just, what I've been doing as the last few years go by is kind of like honing in on what I'm really loving and see if I can buy something that I want to keep for it, whether that's an omnibus or in this case, I'll call it original art in quotes, but because it's not like it was from the 80s or 90s.
I know there's like, I've never collected original art, but like if I could, I would love to try to get something from Dan Jurgens with Superman and Doomsday.
Yes.
Like if I could get into original art, that would be like the first piece that I would probably go for.
Oh, that would be a phenomenal thing to get for sure.
Yeah. But that's like probably ridiculous money.
The stuff from like a certain, obviously the cheapest stuff to buy is the newest stuff right now. Because a lot of it is digital. So it's technically a print. They're printing it, right?
Yeah.
But it's a 1 of 1 and they sign it. And in the case, like I got an X-Men 1 and the artist remarked it for me. So he drew and colored, Mystique awesome. And Destiny on the page. So it's the full page and then it's them. Now, the problem is they don't have the word and thought bubbles. They don't have any of the balloons and things on it.
Yeah. It's like
because nowadays they scan it and then they send it to the inker and then they send it to the letterer and everybody does their add-ons digitally. So even if like I love the new Poison Ivy series, I bought this. This is actually hand drawn Poison Ivy artwork, and even this, the artist scans it, sends it, and then the letterer adds the writing on after. So Marcio Takara just does the drawing and the inks and then sends it off.
Original art and stuff was like something I didn't even know you could like get and collect until I saw Kavi first start showing it off on his channel.
He's the one that got
art
me
hour
into
and stuff like that.
And
I thought I didn't know you could get that stuff. So I started like looking up the prices and I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to get that stuff.
Well, I think the newer stuff is reasonable. And the guys that I go to for that are like Unruly Simeon is a really great resource. He buys a ton of stuff and he really focuses in instead on a talent, somebody he thinks is talented. And then he'll go and be like, oh, they're drawing this great, amazing Spider-Man run right now. And I can buy a piece of their art and just spend a few $100s and get a piece that's original to right now. And maybe
that's not
in 10
bad at all
years,
compared to
what
some of the older stuff. Like
but if
I've
you
looked
go
up
back
prices
and want like
on some of the older stuff.
If you want Jim Lee Uncanny X-Men, you're gonna pay a house payment. Like you're gonna buy a house for that. So those kind of things. And admittedly, the original art from that era, you're going to have the word balloons right on it. It's going to be all, taped, masked together. and that's totally a different scale of cost. But Unruly Simeon sent me 2 Spider-Man pages. He actually, I'm going to say he sent them to the girls. So if he's Lane, if you're watching this, I know that they're not mine. But here's Spider-Man fighting this giant, I think it's the lizard, but it's like a dragon lizard guy.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
So he sent me that. Spidey is right there. And then this one is Spidey versus Electro. So he sent me this one.
Oh, that's so cool.
So they're fun. There's Spidey on the ceiling. And then he's like, I'm trying to figure out what issues. So we've searched around and we think that these are the comics that they came from. But I flipped through and I couldn't find the pictures in there. So they may be from some other source. It's hard for some of that stuff to trace it where it came from.
Yeah.
Because there's so many Spider-Man books, and a lot of times they'll just write, this says M.A. Spider-Man issue 47. So I've got to like search for, is it Marvel? I thought it was Marvel Age Spider-Man number 47, but it was not. And you think you know the artist's name, but sometimes their signature is so sloppy, it's hard to read it. So it's been tricky to trace it.
As close as I'm probably ever going to get is like the picture in the back of the trade.
Oh, yeah. I love it, dude.
I love it when they put stuff like that in the trade paperbacks.
I love it.
Yeah. Just the cool little extras they throw in, but that's probably as close as I'm going to get to like a Doomsday original art.
So again,
I saw Cobby one time. He showed off this beautiful,
crazy
Jenny Frison Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And he had I think he had the comic like framed next to the original art.
Yeah.
So cool looking.
So And Brian from Take the Time Collectibles is on the same level. He's got a ton of original art, and he focuses in on either a character or an artist and what they're doing. So like,
I love seeing that stuff.
He might say, hey, if you like Doomsday, like wait until Doomsday is in a current story arc and then find that artist and buy, and you might spend $200, $300, and you get a really great original art piece with Doomsday. You can go out and buy the book for, cover price to have with it. And then, that's your piece for Doomsday. Now, if you want Dan Jurgens, then you follow him and you might be able to find a cheaper piece that he puts out, that not necessarily a new piece, but an older one, because a lot of these artists hold on to them and sell them every once in a while, a few pages, here or there.
It probably would be better, I guess, like if you could buy it from the artist instead of just like getting it off of eBay.
Most artists have in their Instagram bio page an art dealer like connect.
Oh, that's cool.
So for Bruno Redondo, who's the current artist on Nightwing, he uses I think it's called Black Diamond, is an art dealer company that he uses, and they manage a ton of artists who will then send the pages to them. They'll post the pictures, and then you can buy from them, and it's already signed and it's already ready. And you pay.
If I ever get to a place where I can do stuff like that, I would definitely feel much safer buying it from the source instead of like a random person on eBay.
Yeah. So a company like Black Diamond, I've dealt with them a couple of times, and they're really quality people, and they've got a bunch of famous artists, and they'll cut you a good deal, and you can search through all the pages. So I searched Nightwing, Bruno Redondo, and I just could look at all the pages that were for sale and be like, that one's too expensive because it's like a spread page or whatever. That one doesn't have any cool characters on it. It's just talking out of costume. So I was able to narrow it down to one with Nightwing that looked really dynamic. And each time a new issue drops, a whole new set of pages drops to their website, and you can go through. So when I'm reading the new Nightwing, I'm always like, do I want an page from this issue? And I'll flip through, and then I'll go and see if it's for sale. And sometimes it's already up there, and you can look at what is the price. If it's a spread page, obviously it might be really expensive. If it's a big action page with a lot of characters in costume, it might be more expensive. But that Poison Ivy one I got, it had Batman on it. And I was like, that's freaking cool, and it was super reasonable. You don't get a lot of pages that have Batman in that series, so I was like, that's cool. It's got Poison Ivy, it's got the Floronic Man, and it's got Batman all on the cover or on the page.
That's awesome.
So I was like, all in it. I'm just starting to get into it. I mean, I'm dabbling, and I'm only buying ultra modern stuff. I'm not buying any older stuff yet.
Oh yeah.
I'm not ready for that. But it's fun. Like I think these are pages from runs that I'll look back on fondly as like, that was a great series. The art was really strong, and this is a cool
Definitely.
page from it, you know. And it's only the only one. There's only one on this page.
Yeah, that's cool. Like you said, like even digital, it just been one of one. You know, you can't beat that.
And so some people don't consider them to be original art. Some people call them just mono prints, and I'm fine with all of those terms. I just know that it's come straight from that artist. They signed it, and it's the only one of that page, which is how it should be, you know?
Yeah. That definitely sounds like the way to go to me, man.
Yeah. And nowadays, almost all of Marvel and DC are doing digital art.
Yeah.
You know, some of the Black Label stuff is going to be hand drawn still, but almost all the artists, just to keep up and publish the work as fast as they can, they're almost all doing digital these days. It's just faster. I'm in Ecuador and I'm drawing it. I can't ship every single page to the inker, and then he's got to ship every page to
having to deal with Marvel deadlines.
Yeah. With the Marvel bullpen and everybody working in New York, I would just take the page and hand it to the inker who's right next to me. But in the modern age, everybody's in a different part of the world. And so all I need is my art station and a real high quality scanner. And I just set the page on it. I scan it and send it off. Then the other guy downloads it and does the digital inks. Then they scan it and then they send it off. And it just follows the steps until it ends up in their offices and they can look at it and add, and change things around however they want to do it.
I know one, Simon from Australia, Simple Simon, he's a huge Carla Cohen fan.
Yeah.
And he was looking at some like original art from her and he was just like, it's not going to happen, man.
Yeah. And obviously the bigger the name and the more popular they are, I'm glad Bruno Redondo hasn't gotten famous enough yet. I think this Nightwing run is going to make him famous. And same with the lady who's been drawing or the gentleman drawing most of the Poison Ivy, I think is going to be famous too. And I think this run has been such a great poison. It's the first Poison Ivy run, period. So she's never had a solo series.
Really?
Wow. No. Yeah. So cool. And I've been all in on it. I've been really enjoying it. So I just wanted to get something to remember it by,
Yeah. That's cool, man. Like I didn't know she'd never had a series anytime. It seems like
you'd think,
especially in the 90s, it seems like something would have been there because like everybody was having like
but I think part of it is kind of the same way that like Storm never had a solo cover until the mid 280s. Like it took a while before she had her own solo cover. And it was just not a thing. Boys were buying these. They wanted action. They didn't want to see the girls. The girl main character is not really a thing.
But I don't know, man. Every time I saw Rogue on an X-Men cover, I was behind it.
See, I think they learned that there was an audience for it and a market for it, but it took time. Storm was on a bunch of covers, but she was very rarely on by herself. It was very rarely a close-up. Most of the time she was on with other characters, and it was her butt. Like you could see Storm's butt. It was that was the thing. And then it took a while before they finally, gave her due. And I think it's the same with Poison Ivy. Sometimes a hero, sometimes a villain, but she never had the draw of even like Harley Quinn. Like Harley Quinn got a lot more play before you got Poison Ivy. And then they became a pair and you got to see there would be Harvey and Poison Ivy books, but not a solo Poison Ivy book.
I feel like the animated series made a lot of those villains more popular.
Totally.
It was like lesser known.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, I don't know that Mr. Freeze would be the villain he is without the Batman animated series version of him.
I agree. I think a lot of those characters.
That character might have just went into extinction without that.
And if you're like me, then you hear that actor's voice when you read Mr. Freeze, the same way you hear Mark Hamill's voice when you read the Joker or whatever.
Yeah, it's like after seeing that version of Mr. Freeze, I remember thinking to myself that Patrick Stewart would have made a great Mr. Freeze in the movie.
He would have.
But then they gave us Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze instead.
still holding a grudge
Just
on that.
a complete departure from what I had pictured in my
Right?
mind of them doing with Mr. Freeze.
So good.
We got Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Ouch. Yeah. That was not fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you had like this picture in your mind of who would be a good Mr. Freeze, and then they cast Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Just a complete 180 from what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, that movie, man. Holy cow.
Yeah, I know. I know Brendan Comic Bro loved that movie.
He has a nostalgia for that one.
Yeah.
I love Batman Forever. I still really love the Val Kilmer Batman.
Yeah, I like that movie. Yeah.
And I think people who usually really hate it haven't watched it in a long time and would be surprised how much fun it is. It's just a fun Batman. And it reminds me a little bit of the Adam West Batman that I grew up with. So for me, my Batman was never the Frank Miller Batman, the like dark, violent Batman was never my Batman. My Batman didn't kill. Batman doesn't kill. So I don't mind a little comedy sprinkled into my Batman. It's kind of funny. And
I kind of did it in like the opposite way. Like the first Batman I saw on the big screen was Michael Keaton.
Sure.
In 1989.
I think that was most people.
And then I saw the animated series in like 92, 93.
Yeah.
And then it was maybe a year or two after that, 94, 95, when I discovered the Adam West series.
Oh, okay.
I was like 14, 15 years old. And that's when I saw like the real lighthearted, campy, cheesy Batman.
Sure.
So I like saw the serious Michael Keaton thing first, and then later found the Adam West Batman.
Well, I think the animated series had a good sense of humor too, and didn't shy away from being a little silly. And you know, the Batman costumes that I always loved were the blue, gray, and yellow, not the black costumes.
I like that. When I felt like the Nightfall, the blue and gray story, like I have the whole Nightfall set over on
there.
This
it is,
wall.
my man.
Yeah, that was the first Batman storyline I read.
Yeah,
and I love that costume. I love that bright blue and gray.
Yeah,
like Batman.
Which for me was the one
I like the black suit, but the blue and gray is just I love it.
I had the bed sheets, and they all look like Neil Adams art, you know, kind of stuff. Or Jim Aparo, I think, was doing some of it. Like, I love that look.
I know they recently came out with, well, it's probably a couple months ago now. They came out with the blue and gray version of Batman from the Nightfall series McFarlane figure.
Ooh.
But it's like sold out pretty quickly online.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think it's like the retail was 20 or 25, and I think you can get it for like 40, maybe 50. So it's not super ridiculous like some of the other figures that sold out.
Sure.
Like some of them are like over 100.
Oof.
So yeah, I'm thinking about getting that one while it's still somewhat attainable.
Sure.
Because I've really, like the past couple of years, I've gotten more into figure collecting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I kind of get them at random.
Yeah. But it always bugs me when they do a store exclusive, because my stores in my area never get them.
No.
I know they came out last year. They came out with the Azrael Batman from Nightfall.
Yeah.
And they made it a Walmart exclusive. I check my Walmart every day for like almost 2 months. Never saw it. And now it's on eBay for like, I think $85, $100. And I'm just like, I can't go there.
Yeah. No, my shop tends to buy collections, and they'll get figures, they'll get they'll get trades, they'll get singles and all that stuff. And then they sell the opened figures super cheap. And they'll post a photo on they're really good on Instagram, and they'll post a photo. And what I'll usually say is like, I'm on my way, I'll pick through everything. And I just buy the cool, unusual figures that are open. So that's where I got that Savage Dragon. I got a bunch of random X-Men, like 90s X-Men.
If you're going to open it anyway, just buy it already, open it, save a few bucks.
And they sell them super cheap. I got this fun Dark Side.
That's cool.
Like, super cool looking figure. Oh, what? I think I showed you the giant apocalypse.
That's
he's
awesome.
holding the Green Lantern ring. But like, it's just they were selling this for super stupid cheap, and I think it's a build your figure too. Are we keeping
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
awake? Sorry,
Oh,
we've
dang,
been
it's after
going pretty
midnight.
late. Yeah,
I know I think I went almost 3.5 hours with Magic Lasso.
yeah. Well,
And the
then I
show
gotta
I
beat
did with
Lasso then.
JoJo, yeah, the show I did
Well,
with JoJo went, like, I think it was 2 minutes shy of 4 hours.
wow,
Yeah,
she's great.
it
I
just
miss
like,
JoJo.
she was awesome. I think that was the first time I've ever been one-on-one on a stream with JoJo.
She's a
And
classy lady, man. I love it.
yeah, the whole, I think the first hour we talked comics, and then the rest of the time we talked like horror.
Yeah,
So
looks
it's
like
just like,
tonight.
but that's the I don't like having just a format. Like, I should probably just name the show "Let's Talk Everything" instead of just "Let's Talk Comics."
Let's talk nerd culture.
Yeah, because it ended up being more like just a casual variety talk and just a hangout, really.
That's
Just
the best,
talking the
man. That's the
stuff that we
best.
love: comics, movies, whatever.
Absolutely. Lost.
Yeah, I need to go back and change the thumbnail and put like the numbers on the thumbnail
Yeah.
or something.
The hatch in the background.
Yeah.
I think the numbers are on the hatch here. I can't remember. I don't have my glasses on. I can't see it. Nah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we can wrap up anytime you get tired of talking, man.
Oh, I probably
I don't
should
want to
go.
keep you too long.
No, I should probably put the kids to bed.
Yeah. Is there anything coming up on your channel you want to promote right fast?
I'm actually glad you mentioned it. Yeah. So this is the week for C3 Comics Curing Cancer.
Yeah.
That means there's a ton of great live streams where if you're donating to C3, which is an official recognized cancer donation process where you get to write it off, you can buy and win comic books, you can win all kinds of amazing prizes. Community members have donated some epic books, some absolutely insane comics. If you're on Instagram, go to Comics Curing Cancer. They have their own account and they're posting all kinds of great previews of the auctions and the giveaway prizes. My Saturday morning show, I'm going to be giving stuff away each time we get people donating enough to the cause, and I'll be spinning wheels. I'll be giving away trade paperback prizes, omnibus. We're going to be giving away original art projects, meaning my man Albert Loves Comics makes these great journals. I got one right here, I think. Oh. Hopefully this is one of them. Yeah, where he takes original comic book art from books that are falling apart in the dollar bin and repurposes them into fun little journals that you can use for stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I will be he donated them to me. We'll be giving them away. We have two really cool ones, and I'll play videos for them on my channel, but just lots of great things to win while you're supporting an amazing cause, which is beating up cancer.
Is that starting this coming Saturday?
It's coming. Yeah. So my show will be Saturday morning, but there will be a ton of shows starting early Friday. It'll go all day Friday, all day Saturday, and then all day Sunday. And last year they raised over $30,000, I think. It is wild. There's a lot of affordable original art out there. Keep looking. My most recent splash page by Perez 250. Woo.
Oh, wow, man.
Boy.
That's an awesome deal for Perez.
Yeah. But there's even original art. There's signed things. There's a ton of great stuff through Comics Curing Cancer. So if you have a little money saved up and you want to write off for next year's taxes, you can be winning and buying stuff. Last year I spent way too much money. I can't spend the same this year, but all kinds of slabs and comics and trades. And again, like I said, on my Saturday morning show, really chill, me and the girls talking horror movies like we were just with, like I was just now with Russ. But I'll also be watching the tally as it goes up. I might even have Rob's Fat Stacks joining me. And every once in a while, we'll spin the wheel with all the names of the people that donated during my show and give away prizes, whether that's an omnibus or whether that's one of those cool journals from my man Albert, or whether that's going to be some trades from my epic pile of trade paperbacks.
Awesome, man. I know everybody here in the chat already knows you, John, but just in case somebody new happens to catch it on the replay,
Sure.
John's channel link is the first one in the description. Go check that out.
Thank you, sir. And Omni X-Men is coming back in the next couple of weeks. So we'll be back to, I
missed that show.
The fourth omnibus here. So we're deep into the Claremont era. This is the era we got John Romita Jr. coming in. We got some classic X-Men issues, and of course, we got Kitty Pryde and Wolverine miniseries, and X-Men and Alpha Flight miniseries. Lots of goodies going on in this one. There's your fire start. There she is, right there.
Oh, cool. I appreciate you coming on, John, and hanging out.
My pleasure.
Talking for so long, man. I kept you longer than I realized.
Oh man, I was enjoying it way too much, man.
Yeah, I know. Like, start talking about stuff like Lost, the time just goes by.
Doesn't it though?
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to change up the thumbnail and put something Lost hidden in the thumbnail a little bit.
I love it.
All right, I guess I'll wrap it up here. And my channel, I don't really have a lot coming. It's just basically this show right now. But I'm working on a couple ideas for like regular videos. But we'll see if I just stop being lazy and actually film.
I'm with you.
But I think next week's guest is going to be that fantastic girl, Gabby from Instagram.
She's great.
I think she was scheduled for the 23rd. I'm going to have to message and see if she's still available. But if so, that'll be next Monday's show. And I'll catch you guys next time. Keep it 9,000.